Yeah, start recording.
So we are recording.
Wait, give me a second.
You're good. We're just recording. I'm not streaming yet. GhettoRig podcast episode 19.
She comment that was a lie.
Gotta put something. Get the stream going.
That was a lie.
That was a lie.
Welcome back to GhettoRig episode number 19. So today we have a couple of guests for you, but before we go into it, hey guys, while you edit, I know there are a couple of you already waiting to watch this, so go ahead and hit that like button, subscribe, and whatever. We've turned on actually subscribe only comments for some time, so you definitely need to be a subscriber and then hit that like button. Besides that, let's... Yeah, so we got some technical issues here going on, but I think there we go. We're good to go. So without further ado, guys, let's introduce our guests. We'll start at that end.
I'm Lynette. I've been here a few times already. I don't know
Yeah, that's good enough.
what other introduction I need.
And sir, sir, you.
Oh, hey, my name is Arthur. I've been here a couple of times, but
All right.
they
So
dragged me in here.
today we're actually gonna talk to Arthur. Some of you do know him, and some of you don't. Some of you know some things about it. Oh, by the way, guys, we have an official mascot, and if you look, hey Miggy, can you go in on? Yeah, there we go. That angle. If you look at the very bottom right corner of your screen, you should see our mascot. He's chilling there. That's Zeus. So yeah, so Arthur and Lynette. Now you guys are married, right? You're
Yes,
a couple. Awesome.
Not
So
some cheat things.
Okay.
so we'll start with maybe we'll start with Arthur and then we'll go ahead to you, right? So Arthur, tell us a little bit more about yourself.
I'm an electrical engineer by trade. Been in U.S. for over 20 years. My hobbies are obviously my fish tank. I have a saltwater tank, and I love racing. Watch a lot of racing. I used to watch a lot of sports, but kind of watch certain things. Maybe mainly soccer at the moment, but that's about it.
Cool.
Fights.
Go ahead, Lynette. What about you?
Me, I work in the medical field. I'm also a student of architecture. Right now, currently, should be doing homework.
But you are here at the podcast. See, guys, this is the dedication I'm talking about. Look at that. They're doing homework, but they needed to be at podcast, and they showed up. So, Lynette, tell us. We'll go this way, and then we'll come back the other way. So, Lynette, what made you go into architecture? Tell us a little more about it. How did that evolve to architecture? How did it all start?
So I've been working in the medical field since I was like 15. And I thought that's what I wanted to do until I started doing more patient related things. And then I realized that I don't do good in that field. People make me angry.
Did you try to pursue something in the medical field before?
Yeah. So I went to nursing school. Originally I wanted to be a nurse practitioner.
Mm-hmm. And can you tell us a little more as far as like, because viewers might be out there, some viewers that are thinking about going into becoming a nurse. What made you want to go there and then decide not to per se, right? Like if you want to talk about the curriculum, so on and so forth, just kind of details.
So the curriculum wasn't what made me change my mind. It was more actually being in the field. And it wasn't like a lot of people are like, oh, you can't deal with blood, or it wasn't any of that. I actually still like that. If the doctor wants to put me in
you
the
like
lab,
blood? Vampire?
No, I like the lab aspect of it.
Okay,
I
cool.
don't mind giving vaccines still where I work, or I don't draw blood. We have a nurse who does that, but like if there was, when we were doing COVID vaccines, I was the one running that entire thing. And right now what I'm actually doing is referrals, so I don't even work with patients, which I'm okay with.
Did you have anyone that's like freaking out, like really crazy? You know how you see those YouTube videos, they're freaking out when they see needles?
Actually,
My father.
my dad
my
is one of
dad.
those whose hands I have to hold.
Uh-huh.
And then we did have one patient who was about to pass out in front of his daughter too, which made it so much worse. And I had another one that I had to lay down on one of the beds to be able to give her
Wait,
vaccine.
the patient, you had to
The
lay.
patient,
Okay.
yeah, had to lay her down on a bed rather than just in the regular chair because she's like, oh well, I might faint. My heart rate is going higher or whatever. She just got really nervous. But it was only those two, and then my dad. Every time he goes to the office, I have to hold his hand through the entire process, whatever it may be.
So you did the whole.
Wow,
Go ahead.
calling out her dad on podcast.
It's funny to make fun of a grown ass man for something so like stupid.
Hey, I have a
love-
friend
I
at
love
work.
messing with him.
She knows Jesus actually was at my house. He's terrified. He's like, if you're gonna put a needle in me, you gotta put me to sleep before you put a needle.
And how are you gonna
Yeah,
get him
you
asleep?
can't do that without a
How are you
needle.
gonna get him asleep without
Gas.
the needle?
Gas.
Laughing gas.
No,
that.
tell me, how did you go from being doing the whole nursing thing, and then like, you know what, I'm gonna do like a complete 720-degree turn and then do architecture.
So I actually took one of those, like, not personality quizzes, but like they give them to you in middle school and high school. I don't remember what it's called right now, where you like put in what you like.
Is
what
it
you
an
don't like.
aptitude test?
There you go. That's the word I was looking for. And
That was Miggy, by the way, the producer.
it gave
We
me
let him talk now.
it gave me teacher, architecture, engineer. And I was like, yeah, I don't want to deal with other people's little kids. I love kids, but I don't think I
The
would.
teacher one makes a lot of sense to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, teacher one would make sense to me. Like you say that, but I've seen you with the kids.
Yeah,
that
that's
makes
why,
total
yeah.
sense.
Yeah, but I want to enjoy it. I enjoy being with other. I enjoy like my cousin's kids. Today I was helping my cousin's kid with homework, and I liked it. I don't want to hate it. And then I realized for architecture versus engineering, I have to take less math if I do architecture versus engineering. So that's where I stuck with architecture. And I am really artsy. Like I like to draw. And then after I started doing architecture, I was like, I've been kind of playing around with designing houses since I was a kid. So I don't know why it didn't come to me beforehand.
What about you? So we talked about architecture and engineering. Now you're an engineer, right? Like how did that come around?
I think, well, I like to tinker with stuff a lot, fixing things, and like the design aspect of how things work and stuff. But I think initially when I was younger, I didn't want to do math for some reason. I didn't like math, but I think it was more. I think it was a more of an experience with another teacher. When I kind of you gotta dedicate time for math, right, to understand everything. It just takes practice, and I was like, you know what, I'm not gonna. I wanted to do engineering. I was like, oh, I kind of was going back and forth. No, I don't want to go through all the math. So I was like, I'm not gonna let this stop me from doing what I want to do. And I pretty much started doing math. I just paid more attention, and I realized actually this is fun. So yeah, now engineer, graduated in Tampa.
What kind of engineer?
Electrical engineer.
Electrical. Now, can you tell me the differences? Because there are a couple of types of engineers, right? Like you have what, electrical?
Electrical, mechanical, chemical, and industrial. So chemical, obviously, you
Civil?
do a lot of chemical-based engineering. I don't know what they really do, because
Okay.
I never was
Like a
involved.
chemist.
Yeah,
kinda.
like a chemist, you engineering something. If it's has to maybe with some chemical compounds, you're engineering something.
Like the people who engineer probably like gas and stuff like
Yeah.
that, and certain
Yeah,
octane,
or
shit
you
like
can
that.
work in like the oil refineries and in the in
And
the
also, I mean,
ocean.
it probably also has to do a lot with food too, nowadays.
Yeah.
Probably
So
would work a lot. in food.
mechanical, anything mechanically moving, thermal and things like that. So that's mechanical. And electrical is obviously electrical based stuff.
Can you explain
It's
that a
not-
little? Because a lot of people, I tell them
Yeah,
my husband's
so
an electric engineer.
A lot of
they
people
think
say
you're
I'm an electrical
electrician.
engineer, and a lot
You're
of
an
people say,
electrician?
yeah, can you come wire my house? I mean, yes, as an electrical engineer, you can work in, let's say, facilities and do power, but you don't wire things up, right? You go in there and say, okay, I need this wire, that wire.
So
run
basically, what
through
they're
here.
you
You're
the
the
one
engineer
yeah.
of how the things
How
are
it's getting
wired.
done, not maybe the one
No,
putting
I'm
it
not
in.
going up there and wiring. I could do it.
You
I
designed
mean,
it though. You designed
yeah,
how the
yeah,
wires
yeah.
go
I
and
mean,
where
I
they go.
can do
and-
it. I mean, I rewired
basically
half
what-
of my house.
basically you were explaining the difference between being an electrician versus
Yes.
electrical
Yes.
engineer.
Yes.
A lot of people get that wrong. It's like, oh, come wire my house. I mean, okay.
So go learn.
I'll do it for the people I really close, but I won't do it for other people. Really, I could tell you what to do, and you can try it yourself. But it's a lot of people get scared too. Like, oh no, I'm not gonna wire. I'm gonna burn my house down. I mean, it's just 3 wires, right? If you really think about it,
It
you got
is.
a black, white, and the ground.
Yeah.
Like you just connect to the right thing.
And
Arthur,
if
do you
you're-
know how many YouTube videos I've seen of people blowing up of 2 wires?
Yeah, but
You know, I have a great story.
Yeah, see, and I think that's the
yeah, I mean, a lot of people probably blow up because they use 2 wires and the same color, and like, oh, which one was there?
Yeah,
Like,
right.
what connects it? You
No,
know?
I was working one time with Randy, and this is where his nickname Sparky came from. We're wiring some lights at a barber shop for a buddy of his, and and he goes to put a wire in, install a light in one of the ceiling panels. And the buddy goes, "Hey, you sure you don't want me to turn off the light switch?" No, I got it. I know which one. We see him twitch on the ladder, and we're like, "You good?" He's like, "Yeah, no, we're good." And then he does it again. And he's like, "Turn off the fucking light."
So I think what Arthur was explaining is the difference between an electrician and electrical engineer. So the way I understand, you as an electrical engineer can design literally boards. Like everything
Yes,
that,
yes.
like all this equipment that we're using is designed by electrical engineers and not electricians. And that's the difference. Can an electrical engineer run wires in someone's home? Yes. And that's why he said, hey, bro, it's just 3 wires, right? Like his knowledge level is on he has so much more knowledge
That
about
part of it
how,
is so simple to him.
yeah, that part is so simple to me. It says it's just 3 wires. For me, when you say 3 wires, I'm like, wait, I have to count 1, 2, 3. Like, can it be just 1 wire?
And
You know,
keep track.
You know,
Yeah.
Keep
and
track
I
which
think,
one
I
goes
mean,
where.
don't take this as now you're gonna go wire your house. Obviously consult somebody, but like, I think the most difficult part, what I guess defines electrician versus an electrical engineer. Like electrician knows all the codes, right? Oh, you need to run this conduit here, this angle, that angle. How you run the piping. Like those things I don't know, but I mean I could learn that. There's a book you follow and you learn it, right? I don't know that, right? But if you're just running regular wire that through your attic, or you gotta change a
Not
socket
doing nothing commercial or
something,
anything like that.
yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, you're not just then. Yeah, if it's something complicated, obviously you're not gonna go and do your like.
Solar
I
panel
could
shit.
do yes. I mean, you could like I
So-
could do a new panel. I can
You
wire up my
couldn't.
whole
You
panel.
say that because you know the knowledge, but if you were to give it to
I wouldn't like if you don't know like wire a panel. Yeah, obviously you're not gonna go do I need a new electrical panel. I'm gonna wire a new electrical panel. Well, that's dumb because then definitely you're gonna blow something up, right? But because it's more involved than 3 wires. You got hundreds of wires going into the panel, right?
Yeah.
So you gotta just pick your battles, I guess. What you're gonna do?
So can you explain, and I think this will give a better explanation. Can you explain, once you told us you were working on these gigantic simulators and no one
Yeah.
could figure out what was the issue with them, right? So go
Yeah, I
into it.
worked for a company a few years back. I worked for a company before. Basically, what happened it was just I worked for a flight simulation company where they basically built flight simulators for like C-130, KC-135, different airplanes, strictly military. And I also do like simulators for like hospital simulators. You think about what do you mean? Well, if you go into war, right, and somebody's wounded, they gotta transport these bodies, right? Not like alive, right? They have to have some sort of a simulator in the plane. Not simulator. That they could cure you, right? What if you in bad weather,
practice
things like
without
that.
really
So
practicing.
essentially, we had a simulator that simulates harsh conditions, things like that, and basically soldiers that are doctors, let's say, they put them in those simulators and they induce smoke, whatever it is, right, into the simulators, and they have to work in these harsh conditions, basically to be prepared, to cure you or to cure, the wounded, whatever.
In those
So,
conditions, yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, well, basically what happened is we had a contract out with another company that was supposed to build the simulator, and the company went under, and we got our simulators back. Well, the contract still pending, so you have to deliver the simulator to the government, right? And they were like, "Hey, Art, figure it out. Here's 2 simulators, the hospital simulators, and you need to figure out make it work. And I'm like, okay. So like I was like, where's the drawings? Where's schematics? Things like that. Oh, we don't have anything. I'm like, what? Like these, you know, millions of dollar simulators that you have to. I mean,
It's
eventually
like rocket science with no instructions.
you have to reverse figure out what, you know, the design aspect, what it's supposed to do, what, you know, and actually, you know, speaking of it, it was a lot of mainly was a lot of audio issues, a lot of noise, a lot of things like that, you know, where
You
I
probably
realized
hate
there was
audio as much
grounding
as
issues,
any one of us.
shielding issues, you know, things like that that was causing major noise issues. So I had to rewire the whole thing pretty much, and then Army comes in and signs off. That's it.
So basically, what he's trying to
The Air
say,
Force, I should
you
say.
have to understand how things are built
Yes.
to be an electrical engineer. Where
Yeah.
as an electrician, you just come in and wire things, and then somebody that's an electrical engineer designs all that, and an
Yeah.
electrician comes in and says, okay, here's the design. I'm gonna look at the design. I'm gonna run the wires, right? So it's a little more involved, right? Is that about right?
Yeah, yeah. And then, I mean, I think what helped me to understand that is when I was younger, I like to tinker with stuff. I used to open stuff and figure out how it works, and that kind of builds you to, you know, figure out how things work, right?
So
if
I
you
have
look at something, you're gonna open this board, and you're not gonna know what the heck it does, right?
Yeah.
If you have schematics, it's helpful because then you say, okay, this part is used, this part is used. You know, it's like, let's say they put this part and then next part, and you got to figure out what the flow is, right, of the electricity. What's going on? Why this part is here? What is it controlling? Like, so if you understand that, pretty much you understand the design aspect of how things are designed.
So just to give you an idea, guys, I have a cool story. So we're brothers. I'm the better looking one, obviously.
Sure.
But
this is kind of like a sibling edition.
yeah. So
It is.
Oh yeah. That's
so when we were younger, he was always into like the toys, right? He would break the toys just to see how they work. Not he didn't necessarily break them.
Break them.
Not necessarily break them, like put them apart. Yeah, put them apart just to see how it works. Or sometimes when the toy would break, at that point it's like, well, it's broken already. Let me see how it works and if I can fix it. So he also mentioned earlier that he liked racing, right? Did you mention that you like racing?
Yeah.
So
watch racing.
back
Like to race.
back in Lithuania, there was this place you could go as a little kid and race a car. So these cars were not on like an actual track, kind of like what we have, like a remote control cars.
Slot cars.
What is it?
Slot car racing.
Slot
Car racing.
Yeah,
slot car racing.
I know what it does.
So, and obviously with anything that's hobby driven, right? Like you got to spend money, get better tires, better engines, better this, better that. And back then we didn't have much money. So of course what my brother does, he decides to make his car super fast. And how he does it, he figured out at home that my mother's fan had an
Hair
exact
dryer.
hair dryer, had a motor in it that was very, very similar to what these cars had inside. So what he did, he took that fan, pulled it apart, pulled the motor out of it, and then put it on this car. He ended up taking this car to these races, ended up winning against everyone.
I think I got second place.
Yeah. And the guy that was trying to sell this, expensive engines and stuff was like, well, what did you do? How did you do it? And it's like, oh, just put a fan engine in it or a fan motor in it. The guy was so freaking pissed that this kid figured out a way how to get this car fast without spending any money, right?
Because I was coming in, so I knew like these guys were like buying these expensive motors and how fast they were, and I was like, there's no way I'm winning, right? There's no way. So I was like, what I need to do to win or get into the podium. So I was like, Mom, how many hair dryers do you have? And she's like, couple. Do you need this one? I was like, I need it. She's like, well, if you need it.
And how old were
I was
you?
like,
Like
you
10
might-
years old, right?
I
I think we were like 10 years old or something.
probably, yeah. And she's like, no. I was like, you might not get it back. She's like, okay. So I just took it apart and took the motor and, yeah, won second place. And it was actually what was good. So the motors they were using, right, they were almost too fast, right? So it's a track, right? Slot car, it's a track. So basically how it works, the slots have electricity and you have basically like two, let's call it wires that touch this slot that get electricity and power the car, right? So the guys that were using these sophisticated motors they were almost too fast. So when they would go around the corners, you would have to slow down, otherwise your car would topple over, right? Flip, right? So mine was like ideal. I could just max throttle the whole thing and just go through the whole track without lifting my trigger finger. So it was pretty, yeah.
So
It's
yeah,
a
so
good
that
experience.
little stories. Now, so as far as how did that, like, going through that as a little child, how did that help you go through school and like through? Did that kind of transfer over, like that mentality, like I
Oh
want to win, I
yeah.
want to be in the second place, like I want to be on the first
Oh
place.
yeah. I mean, of course, like I don't know. I mean, I'm just speaking to myself. But you're always like, it's probably in men, women too, probably. But you always want to win, right? You always have this drive. Majority of people drive to win. You don't want to be last. Like, so my goal was, hey, I'm gonna win it, or I'm gonna place top three, right? With what bare minimum that I have. So I mean, essentially, I think you do things that you need to get things done, right? To win it, where to succeed, or in life, or whether at that moment. So you figure out things, that is legal, that is not, you're not bending any rules. So that's it.
Did they add rules after you can't use any more hairdryer
I
fans?
don't remember. I mean,
Well, the guy was pissed.
this was.
I remember when he
20
won. I was there as a young kid, like
This
I
was
was
like
11,
28
12 years
years
old.
ago.
The
So
guy
I
was
don't
so
really
pissed. He
remember.
didn't want to give him a medal. That's how pissed he was.
No, they give, yeah, but I have a trophy. I don't know, but I have a paper, achievement paper for second place.
He
Alright.
definitely has engineer brain. That's what I like to call it.
I think that also, yeah. I mean, I still tinker with stuff. I hate throwing electronics. They're worth my time looking at it, right? I used to fix a lot of TVs, and you're gonna throw that TV away? Okay, I'll take it. And I used to fix it and sell it, and make money.
To this day, I have a monitor that's probably like 10 years
Oh,
old,
it's
right? Like
more
the
than
monitor is not worth anything
It's
at this
more
point.
than that.
It's more
It's-
than that, yeah.
It's complete garbage. But there were some issues with the capacitors, I think.
Yeah.
He pulled it apart, pulled the capacitors off the actual board, and put new capacitors in. And it cost him like $2 or $3 to do it all, right? And now he has, and back then, because as he was coming up, like we didn't have a lot of money, so he had to make do with what he had. So he would go to back in the day to Radio Shack, buy these like cheap
Oh,
pieces
shit, I
of
remember
equipment.
You know they started again? Radio
did?
Shack? Yeah.
What?
Cool.
I think so, yeah.
They're back?
I think so.
I sent a package to Radio Shack the other day.
Yeah.
All right.
They're back.
Where they have a facility nearby?
It's I think
Man, I missed when Radio Shack went out
maybe
out of
Minnesota.
business.
It's up north somewhere.
Even though they didn't have much, let's say if you wanted to do something advanced, but if you're like, oh, I needed this resistor, right? And you're like, where am I gonna get it? DigiKey, Mauser, whatever. Man, now you have to wait for. But if you need some, you pop in
All
there.
those
and you-
companies that you mentioned, I've shipped to them.
I
Those
know
are
you
daily
do.
customers.
But like,
That's
just
cool.
put something in perspective. He says that, like, just saying Miggy, right? Like, if you look at, let's pick a country, Cuba, right? I mean, if you look the way they live, right? All the people over there, they drive really old cars, and they figure out a way to make
you're
the
lucky.
cars. Yeah, but you figure out a way to make these car runs.
Oh, yeah, so I was
you know
talking
what
to...
I mean?
I
You
was,
figure
Yeah, just
out
like Charles said, this
because you don't have
necessity is the mother of
yes,
invention.
Yes.
he
And
said
you don't
that...
have the money, so you
I think he
figure
even
out
told
a
me
way.
he's seen a car that they had done, or he had heard of a car that they had even put like a boat motor.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, I
but these
mean,
are cars from like the 60s and 70s
Yeah,
that are still driving
some-
around.
Yes.
Like almost none of them are, like OEM stuff. All of it is
Yeah,
all taken
yeah.
apart. And like he was actually telling me the other day of a friend of his that boasts over this car that does have everything original still.
Oh,
But it's
really?
really, yeah, like you don't see new cars over there. The only time like from what I've heard, I haven't been there, but
Imagine if the Cuba and U.S., let's say, was really like friendly, they would just take all those cars from there, like buy it from there.
oh yeah.
Even when
Think
things have
about
been lifted, like restrictions, that's one restriction
yeah.
that's always been stayed
Yeah.
in place. Like
Because they would buy out everything
you
from there.
cannot import any cars from Cuba to the
Yes.
U.S.
Mm. So another story, like, just to give you, so this was probably a solid 15, 20, no, not 20, but about 15 years ago. We went out to a nightclub. I'm just going to give you the story, beginning of the story, and then just kind of. So we went out to the nightclub, and Anyway, long story short, I got in a car. I had some drinks, so I got in a car and I hit another car, right? So my car was all mangled. Long story short, um, we'll get into the story some other day. But so this car was mangled, and at this point, again, this is a time that we didn't have $2 to rub together on our name, right? Like we had to figure out what to do. So what he did with his buddy, they went and found an identical car, even the color, that was just a shell, right? They brought that car over, and in my front yard, in a carport, they literally
Cut the front.
unwelded, cut the front of the other car and put it on the front of my car. So they unwelded the parts that were all broken and put the new ones on there.
Yeah, luckily there was no frame damage, so we just essentially took, the shell where all your body work, all your, lights and things like that sit, right?
Yeah.
Mm.
So and then they welded it. So he's been doing this. Like I think when you were younger, didn't you make some money actually buying like cars that were messed up and then fixing them and then selling them?
Yeah, I used to do that. At one point I had 3 cars, and then I did some illegal stuff. I had 2 white Civic hatches. They were same year, same car. You couldn't tell them apart. So like one would break down and just switch the license plate to the other car and do a drive it.
I mean, unless they check the VIN, they're not gonna know.
Exactly.
The cop would literally have to sit there and check the VIN. And the only
Yeah.
time he's gonna check the VIN is if it's like, suspected it's
Yeah.
stolen.
I mean, because 2 of them were modified. They were both turbo cars, and one was just my, just in case car was stock. And actually, I bought it from Josefina's son,
Bolivar.
Bolivar. Yeah, shout out to Bolivar. I love the white Civic, bro. Yeah, I would just switch the plate. It would break down because anything modified breaks. So it would break down like shit. The car's broken. I can't fix it in time to go to work. Switch the plate. Bye. I'm going to work. So yeah, I did. Sell cars. I mean, I think one of the mom's cars, I bought it for like $250. It was flooded. Water pretty much sucked into the engine, and I was like to my buddies, I was like, hey, I bought this car. I need an engine. Let's swap one in.
Yeah.
And
How many-
$500. $500. I bought an engine, threw one in. She drove it for, I don't remember how many years. And I sold it. Still made more money than I put into it.
Yeah, so I can't remember like how many engines we've cherry picked in this
Transmission.
transmissions. There was one time where my clutch slipped and the clutch was burned, right? So we had to replace the clutch. So how do we do it? We don't have a lift, and obviously transmission drops down, right? So he went underneath and told me to throw the jumper cables around the transmission and pull and hold it while he unscrews the bolts. When he unscrewed the bolts, he's like slowly lower it. So he lowered the transmission onto his chest. He pulled the transmission out that way, and then he pulled it back in, pushed it back in. So we've done some crazy stuff. So that's where I think his knack for like tinkering with things since a little kid, and then he's like, man, this engineering thing actually works. Like,
But I won't fix TVs anymore.
I be telling guys, oh yeah, I like to fix my car. Yeah, like I feel like I could do this, I could do that. It's like, bro, you haven't worked on a car until you've pulled out a motor on jacks.
yeah.
Like on motor jacks,
I've
without
done
a
all-
lift.
Dude, I've done all kinds of things. I mean, my previous car was a Lexus, so crazy story. So I had this car, bulletproof car, right? So one day I noticed there's an oil leak, and it was coming like in the middle of the car, like right dead smack in the middle on the floor. And I'm like, where's there oil leak in the middle of the car? So I look. I thought maybe drive shaft leaking, transmission, rear seal leaking, because it was a back-wheel drive car. So no, it's not coming from there. It was coming from like top of the transmission. So I sat down and did the research. I figured out there's because it was manual, right? So I figured out there's a little gasket, literally like almost like a rear main seal, but a smaller one where the shifter goes. So when you shift, the seal sits there and the shaft will go in there, pick a gear, whatever. So it's like $5.50, right? So I call Lexus and I say, hey,
My headphones just died.
Hey, can you hear
You
me?
sure?
Yeah, I can hear you.
No,
Talk
Yeah.
again?
headphones?
Yeah.
Or-
Yeah, so, Zeus,
Yeah, they should be
lay
good.
down.
Down.
Down. Sorry, guys. Zeus,
Hey,
lay
stop
down.
it.
Neighbor's dog is barking.
Zeus. Call him, babe.
Come here.
Yeah, so So I called. So I did some research. I realized this gasket was $5.50. So I was like, you know what? Let me call Lexus, see how much they charge, right? So I called Lexus of Clearwater, and I said, hey guys, this part is leaking, blah blah blah. How much you guys charge to fix it? They're like, sir,
Leave it.
these cars are very rare in manual, and it would probably cost you $2,000 to put the transmission down. I was like, $2,000 to put a $5 part in the car? And they're like, I'm like, you know what? Forget it. I'm gonna do it in my driveway.
Yeah.
So pull the exhaust out. So it was like, the way I did it is.
I feel like I remember when this happened.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
the way I did it, I lifted the car pretty high up on the front, so I have more room to be underneath because it's in the middle of the car, right? So I put the drive shaft out, put the exhaust out, bought the parts, bought obviously extra gaskets like rim and seal things. I might as well. I'm there, right? So now this gasket is. So what I did is unscrewed the rear mount that holds the transmission, and I dropped the engine and transmission slowly, where it doesn't hit the firewall, but enough clearance for me to get my hands, enough clearance, right? So then I'm like there, like this, sitting down. I'm like, trying to, with my stomach, with my muscles, trying to get there and get this gasket. I was like, well, okay, this is not gonna work. So I makeshift something where I can kind of lean on it, relieve pressure from my back. And eventually, I think I spent 2 days on it. Changed the gasket. Parts cost me $50 total. Change everything. Ran another at least a few years, and then I sold it because it had 170,000 miles and had another issue with an engine afterwards. And I was like, oh, it's not worth it because just the parts cost already $2,000. I'm like, the car's worth $5,000. Clutch had 170,000 miles. I was like, you know what? I just traded it.
So what you're saying that in 2 days you made $1,950?
Correct. Yes. So I guess moral of the story is, I mean, everybody has a drive towards something, to figure out how to do it, how to fix it, or whatever it is. You just gotta do it and figure out ways to do it in an economical way that benefits your pocket.
So talking about drive, Lynette. So why architecture?
Well, like I mentioned before, I am artsy and I do like the design aspect of it. I don't love math, but I'm not bad at it either.
So does it require a lot of math as far as architecture, or is it more like CAD designs and things like that?
Correct. It's more.
Pre-calc, I think.
So, because I think this is a good segue to talk about, like, well, first I want to talk to you about this. You're not necessarily in the field yet, so you don't have much experience, but he's in the field and he has a little more experience. So, but I think it's gonna relate. So,
yeah, pretty much if you're an architect, you could do an engineering
wait, let her
degree.
talk. Okay, she's
I'm
the
just
architect. Oh, if you're an architect, you can do engineering.
Yeah, like if you look at the architecture degrees, there's
Very
only a
close to
couple
civil.
of schools that offer online. You could literally do an engineering degree if you do an architecture degree.
Okay, cool.
It is very close, the curriculum.
Yes.
The curriculum is pretty close. Now, as far as the drive goes and things like that, so how much do you think, like, in school, because a lot of people, like, you have, which I'm totally for going to school, because I think by going to school you can make an above average income, especially if you're in the tech and stuff like that, you can have a decent life, right? But a lot of people saying, no, school is just a scam, YouTube University, whatever, right? But I'm a true believer in, like, school actually helps you, not only in the sense of getting the knowledge of what you're going to do, but also it makes you more worldly, right? Like, humanities classes, all these classes you take, it makes you more worldly, understand the world a little better than just the shell that you're in. Now, with that being said, how much do you think, like, the school and the knowledge that you're going to gain is going to help you actually in your field? Like, what's your projection on that?
Well, with architecture, I do have to learn, like, AutoCAD, Rivet, a lot of
Designing
programs. And those are things that are going to be needed. So I'm hoping, I still haven't finished, so I don't know. I'm hoping that I will get to use at least 50-60% of it. Whereas I know, like, engineers use like 20-30% of what they end up learning.
It's true. It's very true. I wish the schools were more focused on the real world aspect. Yes, they teach you theory and you have your labs, but I wish they taught you more in in a technical way
Wh-
what is when you go in the real world, because the real world is completely different.
Yeah.
Theory is good to be able
But
to
I think-
design things.
I think also they're not just teaching you when you're doing at least engineering or even architecture. There's so many branches to go off of that once you've graduated. So I think you get a big general education on the field so that you can then go out, pick what you want to do, and then focus on what you want to do specifically and learn that specifically.
There's Seagrams in the fridge.
So cool. So so obviously AutoCAD, you know, and Rivet. You said I'm assuming these are programs like you
Yes.
kind of have to learn how to use it, which technically you can do all that on YouTube, this and that,
Yeah.
right?
You can, yes.
But then architecture, my understanding is, does that come with some sort of a licensing or
Yes.
Well,
so you
you
have
get
to
a very good what is it? Accreditation? What's that?
accreditation.
Accreditation? whatever?
Certification.
Yeah, I mean,
because for engineering you had to take some sort of a
Licensing.
exit exam? No, you can. You can take an FE exam, and then you can do a PE, which is a professional engineering. FE exam is not necessary for electrical, but it's necessary for civil.
So,
So-
for architecture, I will need to take a state exam at the end, out of the school,
Yeah,
Florida
because-
State specifically,
Yeah,
to
makes
be able to
sense.
practice.
Because you're designing whatever, right? Buildings or whatever. it
so
is.
this has to do with codes, obviously. It's not
Yes.
just
Yeah.
so it's not so can you tell a little bit of the difference, because you know, like there's the GC license, right?
Mhm.
And how can you equate that, like, you know, how kind of he did with electrical engineers and electricians versus GC and a architecture?
So an architect is actually going in and designing, whereas the GC, what they're doing, they need an architect. So they'll get, what they do is they get the architect, the civil engineer, the electrician, the plumber all together, and then also the workers who are going to actually be putting in the work, who are doing the
Oh,
labor.
so you're not just learning the GC part, but you actually have to know
No,
the
that's what the GC would do, is
Okay.
what I'm saying.
okay.
So the GC is getting everybody together. They're looking for all the contracts, part of the name is contract, and putting everybody together on what they're doing. And they also know, once it's going in, they also know how the codes work to make sure that everything is being done to code and that everything lines up together.
I just put it on just now.
Gotcha. Now, before I go to the next question, hey guys, anyone that's in the chat, go ahead and put your questions in there. I'm reading them as we go along. We'll answer them all, so you don't have to say like I have a question, whatever. Just go ahead and plug your question in, and I'll catch it. We might not answer it right away. It's just because I don't want to stop somebody from talking, but we will definitely answer that. And while we edit, go ahead, guys, and if you just turned on, go ahead and hit that like button real quick for me. Thank you so much. All right, so sorry again. We go with the codes and whatnot, right? So like you have to learn all these codes, and you're kind of gonna know exactly what's what, and then you design it, you put it together in an AutoCAD, and then somebody comes in and starts building it. Now, do you go back to make sure it's done properly, or how does that work?
Well, the general contractor
builds basically on the architecture.
Wait.
well
ahead.
builds what I put together. So as an architect, I would put in a schematic together, and then the general contractor is going to come in and get everybody together to put my work into action.
But do you need to go in and
If
Yep.
there's revisions that need to be made, then yes, I would be the one going back and making revisions to whatever I design.
To check.
Usually that's between the architect and the civil engineer. They kind of have a love-hate relationship, I believe. I haven't been working as an architect, so I don't know yet. But from my understanding is I give the civil engineer my job, and then he would make sure that it matches to what is possible, because architects they like to be artsy. They like to maybe go out of what is possible, right?
gotcha.
In school, we were studying some architects, and I'm horrible with names, so I cannot remember this architect's name. But his style was literally to take pieces of metal and throw them in a box together, and whatever that was, he would design something out of that. Like whatever shape that structure came out to be, he would make that into a building. So civil engineers hated him because it's like that's
Yes.
not mathematically possible.
That
But
shouldn't work.
I gotcha. That
That's
makes
what-
sense.
Yeah,
Are
that's
you
why
gonna be one of those architects that throws shit
Probably.
in one box and is like, "This is what you do"?
if you ask him, yeah,
Yeah.
I like to give him projects that are like not possible.
Well, but then at the end
yeah,
of the day, if
building what is it?
I remember
Sea
plenty of
turtle
times.
pond outside in the backyard. What?
I remember plenty of times telling Lynette, like, no, that's not how that works. Like, you
But
can't
then-
do that.
but then
Trying
again,
to
if
put
not-
something together.
But if not that, you never would have Burj Khalifa. You never would have like the Palm Islands in
no,
Dubai. You would
everything is
never have
possible.
Yeah.
all of these buildings that
Yep.
are known, like even the Statue of Liberty, even the Twin Towers, right, would not exist if somebody didn't come in and
Have
say,
existed.
this is how we're gonna build them, right?
I mean, they
Like-
go back and forth. Like if architect puts something together, say I want this done, but they say,
Civil
civil
engineers.
engineer comes in and proves it that physically we can do this, but we can't do that. They come to an agreement. That's it.
Yeah.
So talking about that, actually, what happened was I was watching. They were building some building. I think it was going to be the tallest one in the world. But where they were building it, because of the winds, they had to make this building super sturdy, right? But the problem was that the concrete that they had at that time was not going to work. So these guys, I think, spent like a year trying to formulate new concrete that would be malleable enough to support the weight, but also have the give to move it back and forth, right? So at the end of the day, if it's like a material issue there, I think they just kind of go back and forth and they say, no, we need this building this way. No, we need it that way, and they just kind of do it that way, I think.
There's always new materials coming out, or new methods of how to use certain materials. So that's always going to keep evolving and growing. Unfortunately, things that we learn the first year of architecture, I'm looking at buildings and I'm like, I just learned that, and this is my first year, and I'm seeing these things that shouldn't be happening. Like the building I work in has settled immensely, where the parking lot had to get completely redone. You can see cracks and it's not, it's now building is, I think, 11 years old, but it's not that old that we should be seeing.
Did the
Cracks and whatnot.
students make the building?
Like the Miami Bridge.
The architect that actually built this building has plenty of years under his wing, so I don't know why these mistakes were being made. Like I said, it's weird to see
Your mic is dropping. Tighten it.
these obvious mistakes where it's like, okay, I just learned this. Why
Yeah.
are the older
The other
architects forgetting this?
Yeah.
Well, I think it also
other way.
has to do. I think it also has to do. I've heard this before that when people build houses, within the first 2 years, the house is kind of still settling down, and that's gonna add cracks and
From what
whatnot.
I've heard, they settle beyond that.
They settle beyond that. Okay,
Yeah, but
so those cracks you can't really.
well, no, part of the architect's job and part of the civil engineer's job
Uh-huh.
is to predict. Like we live in Florida, most of our dirt is sand.
Yeah.
So there should be, yes, there is going to be some settling.
I worked at a house.
It's natural, but it shouldn't be as drastic as like what I was seeing in the office.
Oh, I see
where,
what you're saying.
Yeah.
Where literally the parking lot had to get completely redone because it sunk in on one side.
That just happens because of like a Mother Nature kind of thing. Of like, not only did the building settle, but the ground under it is adjusting to that new weight, and
Yes,
so everything starts to move. Like
but
the other day, I
This
saw.
one isn't that much ground under it because there's actually a vault under that building, under that parking lot. So that should have been predicted.
Got you. I saw a house we were at the other day, yesterday actually, and they had a brick wall behind, and at the end, like the last 10 feet of the brick wall, the brick wall was just like this, and they went through and filled it with concrete, but it was just because like you could tell the floor had dropped so much more.
We were actually watching a show one time, and there's a building in Brazil that is like a multi-million-dollar building that they made on the beach, on the coast. And it's totally lopsided. Like the entire building has shifted because of this, and now it's worth nothing. Nobody wants to live there. Nobody knows when this building is going to come down.
Kind of like Tower of Pisa. It's kind of like sideways.
Yeah, but
'cause
the
it keeps
government
sinking.
doesn't want to fix it. People don't want to pay money to fix it. It's just
Mm-hmm.
gonna fall when it falls.
It sounds like what almost happened to my my high school. They so my high school, St. Petersburg High School, is the oldest still running like high school in St. Pete, and it's like 1800s, like late 1800s they opened up, and I forgot when it was, but they at one point the building was getting so old and needed so many repairs, and it was costing the county so much money that they were just like, no, we're just gonna like take it down and build a new one. But the certain buildings of the school are
Historical.
were named historical landmarks to prevent that from happening. But then still, like, I remember even when I was going to high school, they were still battling, like, giving us new shit, like upgrading the place. Like, we would go to school sometimes, there would be no lights.
Or one year it was completely flooded, like the whole way.
Yeah, no, 1 year. That shit happened every time. Every year that it would rain, like it does here in Florida, like constant rain. The whole entire main building would get flooded.
That section between Bell Building and Main Building.
That too, yeah, that would get flooded. The behind main building, there's another building they call Bell Building. That's got this huge bell on the top, and that whole like courtyard area, where a lot of people would hang out during lunch and stuff, would get completely flooded. And like I remember during this like during the hot days, like it would get there and it's like, oh, no AC. It's like, oh, fuck that. I'm going home. I'm not sitting in a classroom at 87 degrees.
How do they build the buildings before that's still holding on? Some of them, hundreds of years ago.
They went through and did some repairs, but it's all concrete. It's all concrete. That's it's all block. So the houses you'll see in St. Pete, like an old St. Pete in the south side of St. Pete, you'll see a lot of frame houses. They're all falling to shit. Built in the 50s and 60s. Termites have had at it for 60 years, 70 years now. So,
I mean, didn't Oklahoma or something?
I think I talked about it one time with the pod already. We did a house one day where we're installing windows, and we ended up telling the homeowner, like, you need to get these walls reinforced before we can install the windows. And like we were on the house was a second story, and like I was afraid to lean on the walls or like put pressure on the walls, any weight when I'm trying to like adjust this window, because I feel like the whole wall was just gonna come down. I was gonna go down out that window.
Well, that's what happened with the St. Petersburg Pier, right? Like they had to redo the entire pier because they kept repairing it, but the salt water literally tears through the pylons, right? Mm-hmm. And they had to knock everything down and rebuild it because they're like, okay, we can't repair it anymore. This is it.
It was outdated. It was like it was probably one of those designs like you were talking about, where the civil engineer and the architecture argued
it was upside down triangle.
It was upside down triangle. Probably argued for 2 years to get that design to go.
Yeah, that's the problem. Also, cutting funds, or they want to make more money, so they build. I mean, look at it. They build these apartment complexes. Made out of what? I mean, how long that thing's gonna last? Cardboard, 10 years, 15 years. They gotta gut it again and rebuild.
Well, you gotta understand, when they're building these apartment complexes, nobody really holds on to them for a long time. It's usually 5 to 10 years, and then they end up selling it to somebody else, and now it becomes somebody else's issue. And those apartment complexes usually there for about 40 to 50 years, and then they knock it down and build it again, right? So, it's
a flavor. What you got there now?
It's white gummy.
Y'all want to hear Rodolfo's question?
Yeah.
Yes.
All right.
I already answered this question. He already should have got his answer.
What is it? What is Rodolfo's question?
That's not the question. It didn't show up.
Oh, okay. Go ahead.
Oh.
So you have a knife in front of you?
Huh?
Right? No? If someone got a knife in their back and dick in their butt, which one they're pulling out first? Tell them not to say dick, though. I think it's against guidelines.
What?
No, it's not.
What?
Okay, so
Knife in your back or dick in your butt. Which one are you pulling out first?
The dick. I'll deal with the knife.
it's like that question where it's like, what's it called?
You know what? That's actually a good answer, Jay. You're supposed to leave the knife in, or else you're going to bleed out.
Yeah, that's true, actually. They say that if anything punctures your body, do not take it out.
Leave it inside.
Like, let the hospital and the professionals
Hey, it's
deal
like
with
Family
that.
Feud. Good answer. Good answer.
I remember I saw a video of a nurse just straight up with like a balloon. She was taking pencils and stabbing it into like a water balloon. She's like, look, you see how the water stays in? You see how it comes out? Keep the knife in.
Yeah, you know what they say that it's not only because of that, because you might puncture an artery.
Yeah, further.
Make it worse.
Yeah,
stuff
and
out.
artery you can't stop because it's pumping. I don't know, what is it like? I'm sure you can look up, but like 5 liters per minute or whatever it's pumping it at. It's just like you can't
More like
yeah.
a garden hose open.
Yeah, so I think I'm pulling the
That's
dick
why
out.
they like. They say
First
if
of
you
all,
get pierced
why am
or-
I in such a vulnerable state to have a
was
dick
gonna say,
and a
how
knife
is
in my
there-
back? You know what I mean? That's like a double
That's
whammy.
like if they want to give you and you said no, they put a knife and then they give you the dick after. I guess.
Can you
Is there
imagine?
is there an answer to that question? Because I feel like there should
Fool,
be
get
I
a
don't
real
know. Fo,
question,
what is your answer to the question?
Yeah, Rodolfo, what's your answer?
Rodolfo,
Or-
get a real
Or
question.
like, could you imagine what's worse, getting the knife in your back and then the dick, or dick and then the knife?
I
You
think
know what I
once the
mean?
knife is in there, you're not gonna feel the dick.
Nah, man, I'm pulling the dick out.
That's
Sorry.
one of those like when your mom
Hey,
or when the
you
doctor
might just like it. You might just take it out and put it back in.
Ooh,
You.
pause. Me? Nah,
Yeah,
hell
you
no.
said you take the dick out first.
I am. I'm not putting it back in.
But what if you like it because you didn't feel the pain?
I'm
but
not
you like-
liking
you-
it.
You like that different type
Listen,
of pain.
there's a big tattoo on my back that says exit only, alright? Like, I don't want to hear it. But anyway, so getting back to the
Yeah, what the fuck
you
were we
know,
talking
yeah,
about? You talked about dick and butt, and it's like, what?
damn, fool.
Well, so going back
That's
to
prison, baby. Yeah.
going back to
Shank, more like a shank. Right?
That's prison, baby. Dick and butts and shakes and ass.
how do we turn from engineering to prison, bro? This is a yeah. It's kind of
Squirrel.
like this kind of like you
Squirrel, yeah.
choosing your majors, you know, from nursing all the way to architecture.
Oh, wait, she didn't.
Wait,
she
that
didn't
wasn't
give
my
the
first
start.
major
Yeah.
either.
Plot thickens. All right, go ahead.
From nursing to
You wanna
I went
start from the
to-
beginning?
I actually went to Criminal Justice Academy for high school. So straight out of high school, my first major was criminology, and
That's actually a pretty good major, because with that you can work for FBI, CIA.
Well, she wanted to be a
Marshals.
lawyer.
I wanted to be well. Originally, I wanted to be like an FBI agent, but then my parents and me being their little girl started freaking out. So I was
Why?
like,
Why?
You would get hired like on a spot.
probably, but I mean, I would have had to be a police officer and
No.
make my way up there. So
Not necessarily.
No, they hire you like right away.
Yeah, you can
With their
go to
diversity
like,
program?
academy thing and just do it that way.
Yeah,
Yeah,
with
especially
their
if you go to college. Yeah.
That-
Yeah, with their
that freaked my
diversity program,
parents
bro,
out.
they'll hire you right
Don't we-
away.
Don't we have a friend, Matt's friend, that is?
Yeah.
FBI
With their
agent?
diversity program, they'll hire you right on the spot.
He's also
they
got
freaked my parents out. So I went like, okay, what else can I do on the law side?
Well, yeah,
Um,
Matt's wife.
And I loved
Or his
studying
future
law.
Which one?
But then I interned for the state attorney's department, and I absolutely hated my life every single second that I was in there. I actually started falling asleep in courtrooms at one point.
I was
So I was
watching a podcast the other day about the FBI, and I heard that it's a lot of paperwork. Same thing goes for the CIA.
Yeah,
It's just
bureaucracy,
a
you
crap
know?
ton of just paperwork.
So once I was actually in
Red
the
tape.
field, it was not
Fun.
fun. I was falling asleep. I was like, I cannot do this for the rest
So
of
you
my
like
life.
studying the criminology,
I
but not
love
practicing.
love
it. Yeah.
studying it. I loved
She likes true crime shows.
Did you like the studying?
not really.
Did you like studying the criminology, like as far as the people aspect of it, like why people do
Yeah.
things and how they do it?
Yeah. Method of operation. Yes.
You
Yeah,
should've
that makes
did-
a
you
lot of
should've
sense.
did it, like in the psychology side. Then,
I could have.
and been like
I
a
didn't want to go to
profiler.
med school.
You could have been
But-
like a profiler.
Yeah, that kind of explains, like, you know, career choices. Overall, generalizing, you know, women usually like to stick to careers that have to deal with people, such as, you know, criminal justice and understanding why people do things, or psychology or things like that, where men go into like more
I wonder
tinkering
what the
with
stat
shit.
is on social workers, like men versus women. Like
We looked it up the other day. It's
Yeah, we
quite
looked at
high
it.
for
It's-
women.
It's very
I'm
high
sure,
for
I'm
women.
Like
sure.
yeah.
98 or something
You
like
can,
that.
you,
90.
yeah, you can look this up in there's a website. I can give you the website. It's the labor statistics, United States labor statistics, and you can look up pretty much every single type of profession you can think of. However, now with colleges, overwhelming majority of colleges are college graduates are women. Like the rate at going to college is about the same. It's a little bit heavier on the women's side than on men's side, but the graduation rate is significantly
80
higher on women's side.
Something stupid like
83%
70-30.
of licensed social workers are
Women. Mhm.
83.9%.
Because it deals with people, right? Like women tend to stay with the jobs that deal with people, and men tend to stay with jobs that deal with infrastructure of running things around. You know what I mean? So So there's something there to think about when somebody's hiring someone. Like, why don't we just take a person that's has a natural propensity towards this? Let's have him in this job versus having the person in another job just because it's diversity and we have to meet quotas, right? Which,
I mean, it's
to me, I don't.
It's kind of like the same thing as like the majority of construction workers you're gonna see are gonna be men.
Yes.
Same thing.
Yes, it's manual labor, physical, and as a matter of fact, I looked it up. I think 99% of all carpenters are men. Right?
Wow.
99%. But then something crazy like 70 or 80 or close to 90% of all hairstylists are women. Like there's a huge difference in between like the trades versus other trades as well, right? Because hairstyling is technically a trade, right?
Well, but then you also have to look at. I think like we would need to look at. I mean, even if I bet if you looked at like cosmetology and as a whole, it's still gonna have a similar thing. But then if you say like hairstylists, of course, gonna be women. But then like if you put in the hair in total, it'll probably be kind of. I would say maybe not split down the middle.
Hair? What do you mean hair?
Like hair in total is like not just styling, but like as a barber or like salons and stuff like that. Because I don't think the hairstyling probably falls in barber too, right?
I don't remember
Probably
that.
not.
I don't remember
Probably
that.
not. It would probably.
I, don't
I think
the
if it
status,
did,
but the difference is very.
I feel like I'm just saying. I think if it did, it would probably be more like a 70-30. If you
I
included
don't
barbers.
remember. As I said, there's the website. As a matter of fact,
hairstyling and barbering fall into the same thing, cosmetology.
That's what I'm saying. That's why I feel
no,
like
they're
they.
two different licenses,
Two different.
As a matter of fact, what I'm gonna do.
but they are
Have the
very
actual barber.
similar.
That's why I'm saying.
actually.
Like I feel like they fall in the same world.
Yeah, what I'm gonna do actually, I'll give you the link, and we can post that on a video. So if viewers at home are interested, you can go in there and then tinker with that and just kind of look at things and see with your own eyes like professions that you worry about. Now, but what I do want to talk about, I want to talk about affirmative action. Do you guys know what that is?
No.
So affirmative action is basically, so the best way I can describe it is affirmative action is
I'll look up the
somebody of
definition for you.
diversity will probably get so let's say you take two people, they both have exactly same qualifications, but one person is considered a diversity person, right? Meaning skin color or nationality, ethnicity, or sex. They will get preferential treatment versus.
So affirmative action starts off at the definitions in the context of the allocation of resources or employment, the practice or policy of favoring individuals belonging to groups regarded as disadvantaged or subject to discrimination. So when you actually, because the majority of society views you as being as a disadvantage, you actually get an advantage in this situation.
Yes.
Like a pity, almost kind of sounds like.
Kind of like that. That's how I look at it now. However, but the way it's worded is when they're equal, meaning in their CV, like curriculum vitae is equal, right? So let's say you have as much experience as the other person, so that other person will get preferential treatment if they're part of that diversity initiative, right? Now, here's the question that I have. For example, we take engineering, right? In engineering, you have overwhelming majority of engineers are men versus women, right? So if a woman tries to apply to an engineering position, they immediately hire her because companies have the initiative or
Quotas,
incentive,
yeah.
or they're pretty much mandated or have the incentive to have the diversity in a workplace, right? So how do you think about that? What do you think about that? Is it really fair? Because at that point, who's to say that these two people are exactly same CV and they're not being hired because they're, from a diversity versus somebody that's not?
So I get what you're saying, that it's almost like, well, because she's a woman, then she got it, right?
Well, not necessarily.
But I think that those guidelines are put in place to keep people from being biased. Because that's always going to happen in those situations of like, oh, because she, like some guy, like for example, I had a guy come to Best Buy one time when I was working at Best Buy, and he asked me to put his cell phone, replace his cell phone thing on the top, and he goes, "Can you make sure you do it, not a girl?"
Mm-hmm.
Right? There's people like that, and then so there's if somebody for some reason someone like that winds up getting a job hiring someone. They put those implications in to help him not be biased, to make sure he's not being biased of like, oh, she's a girl, or that person's from this place.
I know what you're saying.
I feel like I get what you're saying too. There's two sides to that.
Yeah, I know what you're saying. So so let's look at it this way. So let's say you take a resume, because they've proven this, like this bias can fall down to even such minute things as, like, if they're into sports,
Yeah.
or some
Yeah.
sort of sports, and your kids are doing these sports, you're most likely to pick this person because they're into sports. So let's say
Could
we
be
take-
anything that make either being like word alike or not alike. Yeah.
So let's say I am a company owner, and I'm hiring new individuals for work, right? I take their resume and I fold their name, when they were born, when they were born, where they were born.
Blind
I don't see
audition.
that, and then I fold the bottom part what their extracurricular activity
Blind
is,
audition.
and I'm looking at exactly what it is, blind audition. I'm looking at specifically at the experience, right? So to me, like looking at statistical chance of getting a guy that's going to have a bigger experience, more experience in a field such as engineering, is the probability of a guy having that is going to be higher than a girl. So if I fold that and then I'm hiring overwhelming majority of guys, I can get in trouble for not hiring women and not having a diversity in my company, right? Because essentially we removed all the bias, because all I'm looking at is their experience, where they gone to school, and what they have done, and what jobs they've worked at, and what positions they held.
And I think that if you can prove that, like if you ever get like subpoenaed or whatever for that, and you're like, look, this is what I show, how I look at resumes, then I don't think you would be getting trouble. People who get in trouble are the ones who are like, well, they had the same exact resume,
I'm gonna pick the.
but she was Latina,
But she's a girl, so
or
we
she's-
didn't,
Or it's a
you know what I
girl,
mean?
so you didn't pick her. That's where it gets.
Yeah, that's why they put those implications. Is because they know people are not going to be doing it like blind audition, like you saying. That's not how they do it. You know what I mean?
But I'm talking about more about the like, you're saying you prove that, right? But it's not about you proving that, because you proving that will take time, and we all know the way current situation is in a country. It's all about what's the hottest, sexiest thing. Let's blast this company for not having diversity, but they're gonna forget about this month down the road, that by the time I prove it, my company already lost whatchamacallit. They lost their respect, they lost their reputation. The reputation is tarnished. People don't want to do business with me because they automatically assume that I'm being sexist and I'm not hiring women, versus looking into it and saying, this is how he's doing it. Do you see what I'm saying? So I think that's being put in place is a good thing. However, I think what that's doing, it's swaying the swing towards the other side more, because now not only what people are going to do, not only they're going to hire the best candidate for the job, right? They're going to hire maybe not the best candidate for the job just to meet a quota, which means just to put a check mark. And as a business owner, if I'm running business owner, my reputation and everything stands on shareholders and stakeholders, right? Like I have a lot of people that I have to appease, right? Number one is shareholders, and then number two is the stakeholders, or stakeholders and then shareholders. Doesn't matter how you throw it, right? So if I'm responsible to make these people happy, I need to hire people that are best suited for the job, for that current position, right? So if I'm going to get in trouble, now I'm losing reputation and things like that. So how do you deal with that? You know what I mean?
That's one of those things you can't deal with.
But
No.
one of the, like, you're talking about years of experience.
It could work. I think it can work both ways.
Yeah,
Different company, different things. Like electrical engineering, you have such a low percentage of women that do electrical engineering.
That's what I'm saying.
I'm not gonna say it's hard. Like anything is possible, but I feel like a lot of women choose like either civil, mechanical, or what's the other one? Chemical. You know. So you might go. Let's say if you did as a man a chemical engineering degree and you went to this chemical engineering company, whatever, they might look at it and say, you know what, we have 90% of them are women. We need a man versus or another company, like an electrical engineering say, okay, 95% is men. We need a woman to meet whatever quota you're saying. It works, I guess, different. What did it say? Different. What's a court? Different ball. What's the phrase?
Ball is in
I
their
don't know.
court.
Yeah, different ball in different court or whatever. There's a saying. So I guess it depends on the company or what they're looking for.
But
I
I think
honestly don't care. So whatever they hired, listen. If I'm applying to the job and I'm competing against a woman and she gets it, whatever. I'll apply somewhere else.
Yeah,
I
but
don't
if
care.
she gets the, so here's my
Is it
my quarrel. and I'm gonna come back to you because
Yeah.
you want to say. Here's my quarrel: if she has more experience
Yeah.
and she is more knowledgeable than you, she should 100% get the job.
Yeah, I want
Correct.
as you keep going, I want you to elaborate, Alex, on what you mean by
They don't use
even
AI.
AI
they
has
use,
has baked in bias. So they can,
Baked-in bias towards who?
yeah, that's what I want.
Towards
That's what
go
I
ahead,
want.
Lynette.
But what I was gonna say is, I know what you're saying, that it's becoming it has a little bit of an issue, like because people want to meet certain numbers and whatnot. But at the end of the day, the whole point of that being put in place is so that if you do have two identical resumes in front of you, you don't just go with one just because of their sex.
Or even if
Or
let's say
ethnicity
let's say
or
the
whatever.
let's say the
Ethnicity
woman
or
has a little more, but because
race
that
or
guy's
anything.
biased, he still goes with the dude.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
No.
That yeah. So it's like a
So
I don't
so
know if
when
that I'm
when they're
saying it right, but
equal,
it's like a
how do you
catch-22,
go?
like-
How do you go with that? Who
That's
do you
up
choose?
to the manager.
Well, I think
what
that's when-
impresses, like, how he did his. Okay, first of all, I don't think two people can be equal in terms of resumes, in terms of personalities, in terms of whatever. So the manager or whoever is hiring is gonna pick what's better for him. Let's say, okay, they have equal resumes. They work, both have 4 years of experience in this engineering. But the manager is gonna look. You know what stands out of the most.
Not just what stands
know,
out. I think
what-
that's the point of interviews, right? You go in for an
Yes.
interview, you give them the resume, you give them your resume,
Can
they've
be
seen your
same.
resume, and now they're going to look at your personality and look at what clicks better with their team.
Mhm.
And that's the point of those regulations being put in is so that you are going to give that woman that second interview to see which one clicks better with
Correct.
your team.
Correct.
Doesn't necessarily mean that you hire her, but at least you've given her a chance. You didn't just exclude her because of her sex
No.
or race or ethnicity or
No, I understand that. I understand
religion,
what you're
whatever it
saying.
might be.
No, I understand what you're saying, but again, what I'm talking about is like, in balance of probabilities by degrees as such, because right now we have for example, job postings specifically geared towards women, looking for police officers that are women. Like you don't see that for guys, like looking for police officers that are men, because obviously we don't have an issue with police officers being men,
Correct.
but we do have an issue. We want to bring in more diversity. We want to bring in women as well into the force, right? So there are job listings specifically for that. So there could be a qualified man that could get the job just as this woman, but now he's not going to get the job because they're putting priority towards the woman.
I mean, I feel like that happens everywhere all the time, where you just don't get the job because you just didn't qualify for what they
Correct.
wanted, and that's a part of life, is
Yeah.
being told no.
Yeah.
So
Life ain't fair.
I
No, I
had-
agree
I
with that.
mean,
I agree with that. Life ain't fair. Like going with that, life is not fair. And I think the more rules and regulations we put in, like we try to fix the unfairness, but we make it more unfair for
In a
the other
different
side.
way,
Where's the balance? You know what I mean?
But I get what you're saying. This thing has two sides to it.
Yeah,
of like
it's
where
two-
it's
two
like where it
coins.
helps here, but then it doesn't help here.
Correct.
But I do think it's one that I would
I-
agree with, like that it's to stay as a thing.
yeah, everything has its pros and cons, and I think that they're putting it on a balance. Like, are the cons on implementing these rules? Do they outweigh the pros, or do the pros
Yeah.
outweigh the
Because
cons?
I don't know, guys. Have you heard of this thing, Scully effect?
No.
No.
So Scully effect happened when X-Files. Does everybody know what's X-File?
Yeah,
So
the-
X-File show when it came out, because Scully was the female FBI agent in the show, and she was very science oriented and so on and so forth. The Scully effect is when after that show, a lot of women decided to go into the STEM because that they called it the Scully effect, right? Now that was a thing that happened. However, it wasn't a big push. And to this day, again, going back to colleges, you have majority of colleges like STEM are heavily men driven versus social sciences or liberal arts are heavily women driven, right? So how do we bridge the gap? This is my this is my thing, because
I think this is the way they're.
there's a
trying
generation
to.
of lost boys that are not going to school, not doing anything, smoking pot all day, eating Cheetos and playing video games in a basement. They're doing absolutely nothing and just like being a waste to society. And at the meantime, you have the second part of your nation, which is women that are able to work and able-bodied, but they're picking majors that are not necessarily aiding to the infrastructure. You know what I mean? because you need infrastructure to run the
I
country.
mean, that happens in. I think like
Yeah.
a lot of jobs are always gonna have that little bit of, we don't have enough,
Yes.
and I think that's where the government kind of has to, butt in a little bit. And like with nurses, we had a nursing shortage for how many years? How'd they fix that? Raise the salary for nurses.
Yeah, that was government mandated.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. If it's failing so much that it's starting to hurt the community, that's when the government has to step in.
I'm gonna give you an example. So, I wasn't involved directly, but I know that they were trying to hire another engineer, and it was pretty much not demanded, not
Mandated.
requested, not mandated. It was like, hey, it would be good if we can hire a woman.
This was an unspoken thing.
A woman. Well, wait, they didn't because they couldn't find one candidate enough, strong enough to hire. So they hire a man. I mean, we needed somebody. This is the time we have, and they hire a man.
But that's what I'm
Yes,
saying. They
yeah,
they
they
went
didn't-
by because they did what they had to do. It wasn't because they were discriminating against women.
No,
It's
no,
just they
no.
didn't have an option that was
Yes.
a good fit to their
Why
team.
they pick it?
And I
mean,
don't
guess
think
the
that your company is
diversity-
going to get in trouble, or the company you were
No.
working for, I'm not sure which one it was,
Yeah,
is going to get in trouble for that. I think
No.
it's like we simply could not find one to fit and meet our needs.
How about
yeah, but then active proponents that there's still a wage gap. You know what I mean? They always say,
Yeah.
well, this is these industries are 99% driven by men, or 95 or 90% driven by men. These proponents put a bad light on something that, like, okay, well, that's fine, they are driven, but we don't have the candidates that are on the other side that
Yeah,
are just
but
as
that
experienced.
happens vice versa. Like Jorge says in the chat, it happens with nurses too. Like
yes?
some men nurses apply,
Yep.
and they might not be
Hmm.
as,
hmm
I don't want to say as good, but nursing is a woman. I mean, it is woman driven, and it's because
Well,
is
healthcare in
something-
general, I think healthcare in general is
not
pretty
doctors,
women
not
driven.
necessarily.
I think they're saying in some, I saw a statistic in some of the major cities, the female doctors are actually outpacing and out earning male doctors at this. No worries, it happens. So female doctors are outpacing and out earning male doctors in some of the major cities like Houston, Atlanta, so on and so forth, right? So healthcare is also in shifting towards, and which makes
Well, that's what
sense
I'm
because
saying.
a
That's
lot
one
more
of the things that
graduating.
it's towards women.
Yeah,
So when a man applies, do they sometimes get the job just because they're a man?
I don't think so. I
You
don't
know?
think it's as such. Yeah, I don't think it's such a drastic push.
I have a comment actually. So something basically just to rely on what we're talking about. How about companies that choose to hire, let's say, an employee's son or daughter versus hiring somebody that is experienced from the outside world that they don't know?
Well, some companies totally have rules against that. So
Mhm.
it's just dependent on the company that you work for and how often it happens.
Say, oh, my son just finished engineering degree or whatever degree, and they said, he just finished school, he's looking for a job, interview him.
That's just,
and-
but I think that's
and
just the
it's-
extreme spectrum of like someone.
And
Yeah.
that happens a lot in companies. That happens
Yeah,
a
I
lot.
know, but
Yeah.
So
like
I-
I'm saying though, it's just the extreme spectrum of someone. It's just like if you had a friend that was the one who got you the job
Yeah,
at valet.
referral,
Yeah,
referral.
it's the same thing.
Yeah.
But he's the son of Big Boss, so it's right away. So it's just the extreme end of it versus like the low end of that spectrum is just like, oh, my cousin knows someone that works there and he's gonna give me a referral. And that maybe not have as much swing, but
But that's
get what you get
that's
sometimes.
usually, I think, I don't think that's such a big deal because there are so many people like for normal jobs. That's even if that happens in normal jobs, like
Yeah.
normal positions, that's okay. I think when that happens at the not even at the mid manager level positions, but at the higher manager level position, I think that's an issue there, because we've heard stories that somebody's kid graduates from Harvard, and because they have a lot of connections at this law firm or that law firm, the kid gets hired because of the connections, right? Not necessarily the best candidate. Now, that's, I think, when that becomes an issue. But overall, so here's the bottom line. Bottom line is this, that since since feminist movement in back in 70s, women can work, which is, in my opinion, for a country a good thing, because now as a country, if I were the country, let's picture a country, why would I want 50% of my population not paying taxes, right? So if 50% of my population can pay taxes, why don't we push for that and have them pay the taxes, right? Which makes sense. And then another thing is, from a business aspect of it, everybody that's selling you a house, a car, they now know that majority of incomes are two income households. So why don't we raise the prices? Why don't we, so the inflation starts going up higher because there's more dispensable incomes because two people in a household are working, right? So effectively, I think what that has done is for businesses. So if you want to become a business owner, I think it would be silly if you just it would be silly if you just directed your business towards men or towards women. I think you should direct it to both, right? Because you can get more employees, or your advertising, directed to both, because now your sales are going to be higher on both sides. Now, that's actually a very good question. What about prostitution?
It's really not. Just move on.
No, I mean, in a sense, what I'm going to turn it into is, as far as like the sex work, like, porn industry, like porn industry and like OnlyFans and porn industry and things like that, they're heavily influenced by female actors, right? Same thing with the models. They're heavily influenced by women. You don't see a movement there by saying, hey, why don't we hire more men because there's a less representation. However, we see that, well, why are these company CEOs are men versus women? You know what I mean? Like, I see a lot of inconsistencies in industries, which make no sense to me, because if you take the labor force as is, it doesn't matter what type of a job they do, and if you want perfect equality, we would have just as many men here and women as we would have in this industry versus the other industry.
Hey,
there shouldn't be a big gap.
There's a dick going in the pussy. The guy's got to be there.
Huh?
In every porn video, there's a dick there. He's got to be doing something.
No,
There's a guy there.
Lord.
That's true. That's true.
But look.
I
get what you're saying, but when you look at like engineering and high level jobs like that, when for a woman to have got those jobs, 60 plus years ago, it was unheard of, because you weren't even allowed to get an education. You know what I mean? So that's why they try to implicate those things to make sure that these biases
but that was
still going on.
That was back in the day, what, like 70 years ago? More?
Yeah, but there's still guys like the guy that walked in Best Buy and told me, make sure a girl doesn't do this.
Yeah.
So, that mindset is still around. You still have you still have white nationalists, even though that.
Yeah, but would you agree that that's I think, I mean, do these groups exist? Yeah, they do.
Yes, there's not the majority, but there's still a lot of them. And especially when it comes to guys thinking girls shouldn't do this, girls shouldn't do that. Yeah, girls shouldn't be mowing the lawn.
Like, no. But that's a stupid idea.
Yeah.
Girls should do whatever they want.
Exactly.
Now, your choice as a guy is to say whether I'm going... Because, see, majority of the time, you shouldn't do that because you're not going to be a good, dutiful wife or whatever. Hey, listen, she should be able to do whatever the hell she wants. It's up to you to decide whether you're going to be with somebody like that, right? So that's a totally different conversation to have. But anybody with half a brain understands, like, why would you discriminate 50% of your population? That makes no damn sense. But if the 50% of the population tends to choose certain type of careers versus other type of careers, why would you give preferential treatment to that? This is where I'm going to.
What's up, Felicia? Tell your husband I said hi.
There should be more male type clubs, but let's be honest, males pay for it and females don't. Yes, that is true. And if males stop paying for any of the, if strip clubs, the OnlyFans and porn industry, that industry would go bankrupt overnight. It would just literally go bankrupt overnight.
Let's do a strike.
It's fueled literally by male lust.
Strike.
That's whole another story. I think we can have a podcast about that. I think we attempted to do it a couple of episodes back about porn industry and things like that. But we can revisit that with a little more details and whatnot.
Arthur, we already do kind of a strike on that particular sector of the economy.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's called No Nut November.
Of course he's listening.
No, not November. Get out of here. What were you going to say? You were saying something and I interrupted you rudely.
No. I
Okay.
lost the thought.
I you know what? I look at it this way. all the things we're talking about, if it's not gaining me any knowledge or gaining me anything, or I can't do
Or
nothing
hurting you in
about
any
it,
fact.
I try not to waste my energy on it. So like, yeah, life is unfair. Move on.
Yeah,
That's how I look
and
at
I
it.
think if you adopt that understanding, life is unfair, and then you do best with what you got, kind of like full circle back to what the experience you had with the car engine on and the toy car engine, like to deal with what you got and then make the best of
Correct.
it. I think you will be successful, right? I think we like to push this agenda without even understanding why we're doing it. We're doing it because it's the coolest thing to talk about. It's the greatest thing to talk about because we're in our little social echo chambers, you know what I mean? And we just kind of push this agenda, which makes no sense to me, right? Like, it is what it is. This is life. Life is unfair. Like, once you kind of come to terms with that, they're like, okay, life is unfair. What can I do to better my situation? In his case, he decided to break a fan and make a engine out of it. In somebody else's case, they might decide to do something else. You know what I mean? So I think that's the
life is not fair because Eric doesn't have a fish tank.
So anyway, we have some clips, right? If you want to load them up, we'll go into it. And actually,
I
there's
like the one the very first one.
Did
Double
you set up the
Hey, I have a question.
Yes.
Why
screen to
Miggy's-
Microsoft Edge?
yes.
Eddie, I have a question while Miggy's setting up his thing. So, just going back a couple of weeks.
The first.
Let me know when it's up, and I'll pull
well,
up
The
the
first
monitor.
one should be some celebrities talking. It's just Tom Hanks saying some inspirational shit.
What happened to the? Okay, we got the Chinese balloon, right? That they shut down. What happened to the other two objects? You don't hear nothing about it.
It's
They got
not
shut. They got shut
Yeah,
down as
but
well.
what did they figure out? What it was? What it, they, I
So-
haven't heard
We're not
anything.
allowed to know.
No.
It's not sexy
Apparently
anymore.
it
Nobody want
was-
to talk about it.
Apparently, it was some kind of test that some company was doing.
So, and a matter of fact, guys, I have another
Company from U.S.
Is it the clip on?
What?
Or it might have been Canada, right? When that
Is it the
happened.
clip on Facebook, Eddie?
Open the monitor so I can tell him if it's that one or not.
The wise words from Tom Hanks.
Yes.
Is
Yeah,
it the time shall
Felicia,
pass?
we won't go
Huh?
into
Yeah,
that
yeah.
tiny situation,
Oh,
probably.
yeah, I like this video.
Mm-hmm.
You
I saw it today. I saved it. I liked
Can
it.
you hear it?
Yeah, we can hear it.
Yeah, go ahead and play
Yeah,
it.
we can hear it.
Start from beginning if you can.
That is it.
Hold on, let me
Yep,
I
Just
also
go
have
ahead,
to change the
refresh
screen.
that, and then start from beginning.
There you go. Now they can see it. Yeah.
All right, pause
What
it.
I got from this, what I want to talk about, was that how he said time's your ally, and if you wait, is that like if we
Switch-
think
yeah.
like when a lot of us are like in a bad headspace or have a problem or stress or whatever, if you just think of some patience most of the time, give it some patience and some time to think about it,
For sure.
you'll realize that you're stressed or mad over something that doesn't even really matter,
Correct.
that makes no difference on your
It's
life.
not gonna do anything to your life. Yep.
And also how when you're mad, that time is just, at that moment. If you can sit back and look over it and you realize, oh, that's bullshit. It's absolute utter bullshit.
No, what I take from that, like I like it what he says, but what I take from that, like what you're saying, like take time and kind of think about it. I think, unpopular idea again, being the contradictory person always on a panel. I think it's complete bullshit nowadays when they say that men have to be emotional, this and that. As a guy, I think you should be stoic. You should keep a calm and never answer anything emotionally, right? Because I think when you do that, it kind of shakes the ground, the leadership ground that you walk, especially if you're in a leadership position, right? I think as a guy, you should be stoic, you should be emotionless, and you should actually sit down and think about it before responding back. And I find myself a lot of times, I'll reply back to something emotionally, which like later when I sit down and think about it, I'm like, bro, that was the wrong thing to do because that shows weakness, and I don't want to show weakness to, especially to someone that doesn't deserve to see my weakness.
It's
Right.
not the reason that they're pushing for men to have emotions. It's not necessarily just because of like to show weaknesses to other people. It's not for all men, right? Like I've seen Arthur cry twice since we've been together. I don't need him to show emotions if he knows how to
No,
process.
she's saying no sound.
No sound?
No sound from the video.
Oh, make sure that desktop audio was turned up on that scene. So just go to that scene real quick. Was the desktop? Yeah, it was all the way down.
Is
So they
there
never-
sound
Oh,
from
play it
us?
again then.
So
Play it
just so
again.
they can hear what the clip was, just go ahead and play it for them real quick. We heard it, but they didn't.
Jorge, let us know if you can hear it.
And what I got from this as well. Right, we started. That's it.
There's no sound from the video coming out.
Still no sound. Hold on.
Hey guys, give us thumbs up if you're getting the sound coming through video.
I mean,
Gotta hear my phone.
no, it's not. It's not. You're right.
I'm trying to figure out what's going
Make
on
sure
with the
the
sound.
desktop audio is set to the right device.
It's not about weakness, it's about being a human being.
No.
I see you, Felicia. You're talking about it's not being a weakness, it's about being a human being. It is, but
So what I wanted to say was about like and kind of I guess in contradiction to what you said is I think you're looking at when people say like it's okay for men to show emotion. I think you're looking at it like in a different way than what they're trying to say. So when I hear that, I think, okay, because if I'm happy when I see something that happened right, and I feel embarrassed to shed a tear in front of people because society views that as being weak. Because I'm shedding a tear over something even I'm happy about, because I'm just showing a little bit of emotion.
you know what?
A lot of society will see that as like
I'm gonna.
being showing weakness as a man.
Yeah. So
When I'm really not. I'm just showing my emotion. And I don't think as a man you should necessarily be emotionless. I get what you're saying in your decisions that you make in your life. Yes, you should look at things as a reality.
I'm gonna correct what, like, I'm gonna add a little more detail, but go ahead.
can I want to give you guys both a different perspective of this. I don't think that is being targeted at men
Make it-
who are making
Go
who
ahead and
don't
post
cry
a link at least to
or
that.
who
reel.
don't show weakness. I think it's being targeted more towards the men who don't know how to process emotions.
Well, yeah, hit share
And
get
it
the-
comes
yeah, there you
out
go.
in the form of aggression or in the form of depression because they didn't get to process those emotions. And I think they're trying to make it kind of stop the generational curse where you tell your little boy you can't cry. So then he gets upset about something and he has no other outlet than to punch the wall because he doesn't know how to
Let me
let
see if
those
I can do it.
emotions go. So I don't think that it's necessarily about whether or not showing emotions. It's about learning how to process those emotions.
No, I agree with what you're saying. I agree 100% with what you're saying. Now, I'm going to give you an example, and I'm not going to name names. There's this person, you all know him really, really well. And there've been some losses in the family, and never for once I seen this person broken down in front of anyone. I'm sure on his own time with people that he feels comfortable with, he has his moments, right? But in front of everyone else, he's always been stoic, very emotionless, never showed a single thing of emotion. And to me, that was super impressive because at that time, he was, per se, the oldest one of the family, and he needed to keep his composure because if he broke down, family was looking at him, and if because he broke down, then family would not know what to do. So at that point, he was the leader for the family, right? And no one could. He cannot. He cannot falter. He cannot shake. Now, he can, let's say, have his moments with somebody that he trusts on a side. So the part where I wanted to correct is like, guys, you should have a group of guys that you can talk to. 100%. Somebody that's super close to you, they can call up and say, hey, listen, I'm dealing with these issues. I don't know what to do. Somebody that's older, somebody that's wiser maybe, or somebody even a peer. Hey, I don't know what to do. What do you think I should do? You should, in my opinion, you should never show that to the general populace. But I'm not saying
I don't think
completely
any human
be
should.
emotionless. Yeah.
So I totally agree with what you're saying. Stoicism. I try to be as stoic as possible and not act on impulse. But if you are that way the whole entire time, I feel like you're going to lose a lot of relationships, whether they're close relationships or far relationship, acquaintances or such.
In what sense? Go deeper into it.
So, for example, you mentioned that you had somebody in your family had a loss in the family, and he had to be super.
You can say my
super
family,
strong. I had a similar experience myself when my stepfather passed away. I was super stoic, didn't cry throughout the whole entire thing.
Did you have somebody to talk to on the side when you needed that emotional release?
At the moment, no, but later on, there were people that did come up to me, and I was able to let out those feelings, how I felt, blah, blah, blah. But like Lynette was saying, it's very important that you have somebody that you're able to talk to. And like you were now saying too, even if it's just a friend or somebody that you actually trust to be able to talk to those feelings out. And maybe somebody that you can feel like, hey, I'm letting out my vulnerabilities, but don't prey on those vulnerabilities in a way.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to say. Because as a guy, we're viewed as leaders, right? Now, when shit hits the fan, right? Let's take a battlefield, right? Your lieutenant is running around as a chicken with a head cut off, and is like, "Oh my God, I don't know what to do." You, as a private, would you entrust this person? You wouldn't, right? So
that's why I think. Sorry to cut you off, but I think that's why I said it's that. Think that what you're saying doesn't just apply to men. That a woman should act the same way. Hold herself together in front of in front of the general public.
There's also another unpopular idea. When women cry in front of people, it's usually fake. When they cry away from everyone, that's actually what is. Now, I don't know if this is true or not. Some people say it's true. Some people say it's not true. But a lot of times they say it's crocodile tears when it's in front of a bunch of people.
Looking for attention.
I think it depends on the person.
Yeah.
Yeah. Some women cry a lot easier. Like if you ask him, he doesn't see me cry at my family's funerals, and we went to a lot in the last few years, unfortunately. But then at 2:00 in the morning, I'm like literally shaking because it just.
Well, that's what I'm trying to say. See, like that actually, look, you're emotionally affected by it, but you don't show that, because there've been instances where they're like,
I don't think that's a bad thing.
No, it's not a bad thing.
I've cried at all the funerals we've gone to.
Yeah,
it's not a bad thing. It's just it is what it is. I mean, some people just can't handle it. Some people can handle it better, and then some people look at it all and say, "Oh, this person is gonna call me pussy. I can't cry."
Well, no, it's not. Yeah. It's not that. It's not about them calling you this or that. It's not. It's more about like if you're in a leadership position in certain area, everybody has to look at you, in my opinion, as a very stoic person that has the situation under control no matter what.
Because like, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but like my dad is somebody to look up to me.
Hell yeah, especially when he's drinking whiskey.
And I mean, a lot of even my cousins, like my dad is the cool uncle. My dad is the one people go to talk about stuff.
Well,
and he's the biggest crybaby.
So here's the thing: he's the biggest crybaby in front of you, right?
Anywhere, at any time.
I was just about to say. So this
that's
is the
not
thing.
True.
That's not true. No, that is true.
That's not true.
My dad.
Ready? This is the thing. What I'm gonna get to. Sometimes I think it might be a good thing to maybe if you're the leader, right, of some situation and you're trying to show this stoicism, to show a little bit of vulnerability because
to show that you're a human.
Yeah,
that's another thing. Yeah, that's totally different. But
it's the same
break down what I'm talking about. Completely
that's different. That's different. But you
because everybody's looking for you to be that rock whose emotional waves are gonna crash into.
Yeah, but you can still show some vulnerability, but at the same time, you also have to show, even though we're at this maybe disadvantage, I'm still gonna try my ass off, and I'm still gonna be there, whatever.
Yeah, I agree with no more than my Uncle Bolivar. Yeah, they're probably up there in who will cry easiest between him, Jorge, and my
Jorge,
Uncle Bolivar.
Jorge
They
will
will
cry.
Jorge
like
will
babies.
cry over
Yes.
anything.
I cannot
over
wait to tell Jorge.
anything.
Listen, I am more excited when I get pregnant to tell Jorge than I am to tell Arthur because I know Jorge's gonna cry.
So here's the thing. Here's the thing. Since you brought your
Yeah,
dad
Jorge.
in, the person I was talking about was your dad.
And
Right.
see, he cries at everything.
He was not. I'm telling you, every single time there was a loss in a family, unfortunately, you know what I mean. Every single time I've seen him, when he needed to be the stoic person, when he needed to keep his emotions in control, when everyone was looking at him, he had his emotions. Maybe later.
Yeah, he's wearing sunglasses.
First,
I did
First-
not see him falter
first-
one bit.
when he was
And I
at,
paid attention at that.
I won't say exactly what funeral, but I've seen him at a funeral with sunglasses on. And if he took those things on, he was gonna be bawling under.
But
But
he
at the
had the
same time-
sunglasses on. And for somebody that doesn't know him as well as you might, from the outside, it seems like,
But
damn, he's holding it.
But
you see,
look,
I
when
don't
I-
see it that way. 'Cause
When
like,
so he's not holding because he wants to hold and make sure he looks heroic.
No.
and
He
stoic.
knows that he's responsible for
He's
things.
just done. He's not. He's a very smart man that understands that I'm not gonna keep crying when that's
Like,
not gonna make
it's
any
like
difference.
it's almost like Arthur said. It is what it is. You can't
He
do anything
understands,
about
yeah.
it at that point.
not really because
Nah,
it's see.
I think there's a little more to
and
it.
see, if you think about it, if you go back to like these funerals that we've been to lately, my dad can't give the speech.
No.
Yes, I know.
He can't do it.
I know. He
and
knows his
sometimes
limits.
I wish that he would,
But he knows
but
his
he won't.
limits.
Yeah.
And
But he knows his limits because, in my opinion, again, I could be 100% wrong on this. In my opinion, I think he maintains his composure, and when people are looking up to him, they know that there is a shoulder they can cry on, because he's there holding his
You can
composure,
cry with.
and he gives hope to people that feel broken, and if it gives hope that people
just
don't
cry
feel
away.
right.
Yeah, but that's all just comes down to because he's not breaking down completely.
but I also think that
You know what I
that's
mean?
been,
And
yeah,
this
I
is
mean,
what I'm
it's
talking
the
about. As a guy,
breakdowns,
you
yeah.
should have that type of.
I think everybody should, not just as a
That's
guy.
what
Like,
that's what I'm getting to as well. I think it's not just as a guy.
Everybody should,
I think
and
everybody should. You should be
Everybody
able to hold your
handles
composure when
differently,
needed.
and there's some
Yeah, but then
people
again,
just-
if let's say my wife cries about something, I'm not gonna, for example, lose. I'm not gonna lose.
Yes, you will.
No, I won't. I won't lose confidence in her leadership abilities.
Oh no.
Do you see what I'm saying? I'm not gonna lose confidence in her leadership abilities. But when a proverbial man of the house cries, now everyone who's looking for that leadership is like, so. If the strong person
don't-
is crying,
don't
what do
look
we
at
Yeah,
do?
don't think so.
I don't think
I don't
so.
look I don't
It-
agree
on
with
the
that statement.
contrary, I see it like if the strong person is crying, then that means if I cry, it's
Yes.
okay.
Yes. I don't look at it.
I guess. I guess.
Yeah, I believe the
guess.
same thing.
You'll cry when you get married.
I guess. But anyway,
He cried
so
at
we have
Shayla's
another
thing.
clip. I think we. Oh, by the way,
that's really the only one I have
so
today.
does everyone know PBD, Patrick Bet David podcast?
Oh God.
Oh my god.
Stupid.
Wait, hold on. I actually wanted to go back
You,
to the.
you know why?
earlier
Because we talked
conversation.
about how he cries. He's the easiest one to
Yeah.
cry. He's like, I gotta poke.
He's
Jorge,
looking for his
stop
revenge.
poking. You'll cry.
When we were
baby.
talking about like job discrimination.
Yeah,
and-
yeah,
and
yeah, yeah.
picking up, I saw this TikTok video that was of a girl who was breaking down because
Mhm.
she couldn't get a job
Mm-hmm.
at a Latin restaurant, at a
Mhm.
Spanish-speaking restaurant, and she
Did
was
she speak Spanish?
no, she was upset that in America she couldn't get a job because she didn't speak a second language. And I just like with you guys, everybody here speaks 2 languages, if not more. Like from living in other countries, what is your like? I feel like in every other country except for America, everybody knows more than 1 language.
Well, so here's the thing. Now, with that getting upset because you're not getting a job in a Hispanic restaurant, that's absolutely stupid. If you want to
like,
get a job in a Hispanic
I don't know
restaurant, go
Spanish,
learn.
but I want this job as a
Listen,
translator.
I look at it this way: if you want to get a job and you figure out what prevents you to get the job, you learn that and you get the job. That's it.
I agree with that, and
So-
I also feel
Or
like if
move
you're
on, go to another
if
place
you're going
that
to a
is an
place where the
American
clients
restaurant. I mean,
and
simple.
customers are going to be majority Spanish speaking or whatever the language may be, then how do you expect to get that job if you can't provide the
Yeah, the
company
cus-
with one of
yes.
with the customer service
Correct.
that they need you to provide?
Correct.
Because I'm sure if the job was sitting behind a desk writing numbers, it wouldn't matter if you spoke a different language.
Or she was
what.
bussing the tables, but
Or
if
she
she
was
was a
just-
waiter or a
exactly.
hostess,
I can tell you this. I wanted to learn Spanish because I was tired of somebody else ordering a cola for me.
Yeah, so you.
I was
did-
tired of somebody else ordering food for me.
Simple.
And I decided to learn Spanish. This was the only language that I personally decided to learn, right? I do speak other languages, but I don't consider that as me as
Yeah,
having a
but
little check mark, right? Because
you
I
had to
did
live there, and it was just
exactly
You
and
had to.
I had to learn it. So I don't consider it as a check mark. Like the only one that I consider okay, like I'm actually trying to accomplish something is learning Spanish because I technically don't need it, right?
Yeah.
So with that being said, like her crying because she couldn't get a job, that's stupid. Learn the language, get the job, right? Like that's what it takes. Like
Yeah.
nothing in this
Or
world
apply
comes
for a
easy.
different job where that's not a quality or.
It's
Yeah,
like I
that's
said,
neat.
you want to
But
try
then it was like.
apply to be a translator, but you don't know the language. What?
Yeah.
Yes.
But then it was
Yeah.
like.
And
Or you
get
want to be
mad
a
about
technical
it?
writer and you don't know how to write.
Yeah,
Or you're
exactly.
dyslexic. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like just it's not gonna work.
Yes.
She was bashing that job
That
and the
is
community
discrimination.
because this is America and America is mostly English. But if you look it up, America doesn't have a set language. Like
Listen, go
English is the majority, but then the other the second one in line is Spanish. So if you're gonna talk about what
Yeah, I mean,
language should be spoken,
Like I said, you learn.
So
it
that's
if you want
to
the
me
job.
that's victim
it.
mentality. I hate that. I
Yes.
dislike
I would
that
agree
with
with that, yeah.
everything.
Yes, I agree with that situation. That in that situation,
But you can.
No, you absolutely can.
Yes.
It's not a discrimination. If somebody does not have the experience nor the job skills to get said job,
That is
they
not
shouldn't get the
discriminating,
job.
yeah.
That is not discriminating whatsoever. So I don't know how you see discrimination in this, but it is not
it's
discrimination.
like, I'm gonna
So let's
apply
say
to
if
be
you
a
want
doctor,
to.
but I haven't gone to med school.
Exactly. So how are you gonna be a doctor if you never gone to med school? Because you watched it on YouTube. Yeah, good luck. But anyway, so the point is, life is unfair. You want to get something done. Like
Yeah.
go towards it.
Yes.
Learn. Spend some time. Take time to do it and learn. But this is that whole proverbial victim mentality by somebody saying, "Well, I came from this. I did this. The life has been unfair to me." Listen.
Life is unfair.
Life
people.
is unfair to Cubans about a year ago when they have absolutely nothing, when they don't have toilet paper, they don't have this, they don't have that. Yes, these are the people that can say, listen, life is unfair to me, but they're making do and they're living and they're doing whatever they got to do. Is it normal? No. Is it?
you know what they do? They get their ass. They work their asses for 5 to 10 years to save up all the money, and then they risk all that money that they just saved
Yeah,
up
to jump
And their
to
lives.
their lives, the money of their relatives as well, because this happens. Ready? So, to give a very
I don't
like
know
make
if
a
they can sue the employer.
make a long story short on
They
a lot
can,
of
but
Cubans,
nobody's gonna.
a lot of
Yeah.
take
Cubans
that
that
case.
come to the U.S. Like I said, they spend 5 to 10 years saving up money just to have enough money to pay either to start the process of doing it legally,
Mhm.
and to do that you have to have somebody here that will claim you and all this crazy shit,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
then
yeah.
that takes 2 to 3 years if you get approved. And then if you want to do it the way that the majority does it, which is illegally, you go through South America, traveling through all these
Yeah,
different
from
countries.
Mexico.
And I've heard of people that will get caught by the different
ICE?
No. That will
Different
get caught
countries.
different countries, like, but not like the country themselves, like cartel and the gangs that are in these different countries, and hold
Guerrillas.
these people hostage.
Mhm.
And they'll have you basically call your family members in the U.S. and be
Give
like,
me money.
give me money, and they're not coming. Or it's just crazy. I've talked to a lot of Cubans, especially a few of them that I've talked to that have come lately, like within the past year or 2 years, and the struggle is insane.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
they're
That's
saying,
a victim.
yeah,
That's a real fucking.
That's
Yeah.
an actual victim, yeah. So I've seen the claims cases. Yeah, that's fine. You can claim it, but that case might not go anywhere. For example, if
Yeah, I
it's
don't know
under
how you
$500,
prove
good luck getting a civil case court order. It's gonna take you 6 months. Then you gotta hire a lawyer. You gotta pay the lawyer. No lawyer is actually gonna take up this case, and the prosecutor that's gonna take up this case is probably gonna be an inexperienced prosecutor just out of school, coming in a place that has a couple of dollars to rub together will get a lawyer, and that lawyer will walk all over them, and that claim is going to be thrown out the courtroom.
I just
And
don't understand
no-
how you can be mad at the fact that as in let's say I don't know where this restaurant is, But let's just say
the video that I watched was in Texas.
was in Texas.
Yes.
Okay.
In a area where the community was mostly Spanish speaking, and it
Even
was
if
for
they
a
have
Spanish
to-
speaking, like a Latin restaurant.
Yeah, if their
Yeah.
customer base is, I mean, coming in that they don't
And
know English,
It
and they have
it doesn't
to,
matter
serve
if
them
as an
in-
employer I say I need my employee to speak Spanish.
Yeah,
Has to
that's-
be
that's
bilingual.
like I need my
So-
employee
so-
to
so-
have
That's a
5 years
requirement.
experience.
If it's
That's a skill requirement.
Yes, a
Something
requirement.
that's something like that. You or your mom that doesn't know Spanish, you guys, if you want to get that job, oh, you don't know Spanish, go learn it. You can do that. You are
Yeah.
capable of
Yes.
acquiring that skill. I don't think that's discriminating.
No, so
I
if
don't
it will,
believe
if as you're saying, Felicia, that it will pay for more than that, could you please give us an example? Because these are all public records. We can pull it up and see exactly what claim you're talking about and what was the actual claim versus just saying, oh, they're gonna
Yeah,
get
I mean,
sued.
if
It
the
doesn't
employ-
work
and
as
that's why
easy as you think it
employer-
does. Somebody that's
Especially-
somebody that dealt with the court system, being as a defendant, as a witness, and as many other things within the United States court system, I can tell you by firsthand that it doesn't work the way you think it does. So
But not only that, like right now, the doctor I work for, his patients are probably like 70% all Spanish speaking.
yeah,
So if he were to hire a front desk girl who doesn't speak Spanish,
how are they going to communicate?
How are they going to communicate? How is she going to answer phone calls from these patients? So now he's going to have to hire her and then a translator, or he's going to have to
Yeah,
have another one of
exactly.
his employees that speaks Spanish stop doing their job to go help with her job. Like it just doesn't work out if that's what the community requires.
Yeah, and that victim mentality, I dislike
And
that
they're-
victim mentality. You
Yeah.
know, like it's like you want something, go get it done. Like just like I want to order my food in a Spanish restaurant in a Spanish language, I'm gonna learn Spanish to do that. If I don't, then I'm hoping somebody might speak English and then somebody might translate. That's to me, that's
But then
literally
going like you want to compare to Cuba, right? In Cuba, you can work, get paid, and then when you get that money, oh, I want to go buy rice. There's no rice at the store to buy. That's a victim right there. 'Cause
Yeah.
There's the
Did
black
it-
That's
market.
unfair.
There's no,
Yeah.
and hey guys, just a quick like a 5-second break here. Hey guys, could you please hit that like button, please? I don't know. Can you check where the likes are at? There are 14 of us right now live. Could you make sure we're at least at 14 likes, if not above? If you haven't, we're at 11 likes right now. So go ahead and hit that like button if you haven't done so
And
already.
thank you very much.
Yeah, and thank you very much
And
on
come
that.
again.
And-
Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna respond to Felicia. The video that I was watching, like it did say
Okay, Spanish speaker. Okay,
speaking,
then there's.
and then she
Yeah.
still
Yeah.
applied. So it was like again, it goes back to what I just said
I mean,
about.
you can apply. and they just
I'm gonna
tell
apply
you-
to-
Yeah.
She walked in there and she was like, "I'm here for the waiter position."
No entiendo.
Hannah, ¿qué tú haces aquí, Hannah? Hannah, the subway's next door, Hannah.
In the video, she says like,
Yeah,
"Oh,
yeah,
he
yeah,
started
for sure.
talking to me in Spanish, and then when I said I don't speak Spanish, he spoke to me in English. So obviously, he speaks English, and it's not about what the employer speaks; it's about what the client requires, and the
Yeah.
customers are going to require."
And he knew Spanish
So,
and English.
I have a little sidetrack. So,
Yeah, we
I
have
think our viewers kind of know who Andrew Tate is, and you guys all know who Andrew Tate is.
All right, I'm done.
I'm leaving.
No, just stay,
I'm
stay.
leaving.
So these guys been locked up with allegations of trafficking, sex trafficking, so on and so
now
forth,
laundering as well.
money laundering, things like that. Like we touched on this a little bit in the past, but the point I want to talk about is I watched this podcast. It was Patrick Bay David, right? PBD podcast. And if you don't know who Patrick Bay David is, you might want to look him up. Super intelligent. He's a billionaire. He's an immigrant that came
What
from
is he?
rags to riches.
Where is he from?
I think
I'll look it
I
up.
think he's from Iran.
Iran.
He's from Iran, but I think he's Armenian. I think I'm not sure on that. But the point here is he was actually interviewing the lawyer, Andrew and
I
Tristan
heard.
Tate's
I
lawyer.
didn't watch the thing, but I heard
Yeah,
about it.
he was interviewing the lawyer. The lawyer is an American lady. They also have a lawyer in Romania who's a Romanian. So basically, the whole thing was that when this lady goes there as their lawyer, they're not allowing her to have a conversation with her clients, technically, because she's not part of the Romanian
He's
legal system. Go
he
ahead.
was born. Sorry, just to let you
Go
know,
ahead.
he was born in Iran, but he is of Armenian and Syrian descent.
Armenian and Syrian. There we go. So they're not allowing her to talk to the clients, and everything that's going on, the actual contact there, the lawyer has to translate over because the documents are in Romanian, right? So they have to translate over. So, and recently, what came out was WhatsApp messages of these two girls that've been accusing him of trafficking and this and that,
Basically coordinating.
to pretend that they fall in love with these two brothers and how they're gonna scam them, make their money, and even sell this on Netflix. This is all in text messages. So what do you guys think about that?
Well, so
And they have the proof that they
Yes.
yes,
Yes, they
the
have
WhatsApp
WhatsApp
messages of
messages.
these girls
Court.
Well, the thing is, Romanian court
haven't
system.
been doing this officially in any kind of way.
Yes, they haven't been doing everything officially, and they
By the
keep
book, yeah.
extending how long they're going to be in
Yeah, but
jail. And the
I
reason they
was-
do this is because they're saying that they don't have enough proof, so they're hoping to find more proof. That's why they keep extending the court
Correct.
date. And
That's
the
what-
courts are a little bit different over
That's
there
what
versus
Yeah.
here.
Tate's
I
lawyers
heard
keep
you
saying.
And
Yeah.
they're a flight risk. I mean, how much money do they have? They could
Yes.
get up and leave. So I
What
see
I-
how
Yes.
the government wouldn't release them.
But if you don't have the proof, do you
Look,
see what I'm saying?
If they come and they arrest you,
But the
and-
allegations are there.
and the allegations are not the same thing as like the charges.
Yeah, but
aren't
remember,
they?
you're not in US.
As official charges.
not-
You're
Yeah, but-
innocent until you're proven guilty. This is
In
what
the
we
US.
used in
what I-
US.
well, in the
In
US,
US.
right? This is what I thought was crazy is that I mean, not really, but at the same time, like that you didn't see anybody talking about how like the U.S. isn't like I saw one guy say this, but that the U.S. isn't doing anything. How these two U.S. citizens are being held with no.
As a matter of fact,
yeah.
PBD asked the lawyer, he's like, what about United States? Lawyer kind of like pussyfooted around the answer.
Didn't wanna
And
say.
what she said was like, I went to the consulate, and consulate said you need to contact your contacts in Romania. So the United States consulate is not moving a finger to do anything
So
about
what
it.
happened with the Brittney, whatever her name is? The
Well, she
US
got-
was involved.
Yeah, U.S.
Yeah.
was involved.
That's why
Or
that's
something
where I
that
saw
knew,
this
she
guy.
knew she was doing wrong, and they
Got caught by doing
got
wrong.
caught by
Exactly.
doing wrong. Is it because it was Russia?
No, I think it was because number one, it was Russia. Number two, because
And
she
she
was a
has-
female. Number three,
She has good standing.
she has good standing.
Because
With the
she's
US.
Yeah,
I
'cause
got
she's
you,
not-
I got you.
she's not jogging
I mean,
US.
she's an
The
Olympic
publicity
athlete
was-
versus someone like Tate that talks hella shit about the U.S.
Well, he doesn't talk hella shit about the U.S. He talks hella shit about
Everything.
no,
The
he
whole
talks
world.
hella shit about the way things are done in U.S.
Yeah, the U.S.
Not
Well,
necessarily.
then he can deal with the court
Yeah,
systems out of the
that's why
U.S.
US
If
is
that,
not
Yeah, see, but
you know, if
now-
he's
now
gonna
see-
talk shit about how things are done in the U.S., well, now he gets to deal with them how they are done in other countries.
now see what I'm trying to say. Now, country should not be biased, because country should be for your people that live in your people and are your citizens.
Your citizens.
Doesn't matter how much shit the citizens talk
But-
about.
Yeah,
But here's the
that's-
thing too, like he has a house there, right?
He
Like
does.
he has money there. He's an American citizen, but he is still a resident of this other country and still part of their economics.
Now I don't know if he's a resident, but he's a huge part of the economics because he's probably 10th richest or 20th richest person
So
in that country.
It's different if you look at it this way. It's different that it's not just he's a U.S. citizen that went on vacation there and is not spending tons and tons of money there. Just vacation money, like the Brittney girl was. Versus
Well, Brittney girl was there to play basketball.
Yeah, she was there as an
Knowing
athlete.
knowing that they're extremely strict about cannabis in that country.
Yeah. So yes,
So she knowingly broke the law.
I don't agree with the way things were handled with her, but I do see where he is part of the Romanian economics. He is part of their culture and community. So it's very different than to just say, "Oh no, he's our citizen. We're gonna take him back and take care of him over here."
Romanians rioted
Whereas
Romanians rioted.
when they put her in jail.
I was
Yeah, so-
reading, I was reading
so
actually.
my
how-
thing
Tate
is
army was
even my
walking
thing
through the
is
streets.
my thing is you might not agree what he says or how he says or how he delivers. There shouldn't be a cause for you to completely like try to get rid of someone
Well, I
just
don't-
because you don't agree with what he says.
No. Nobody's. I mean, yeah, there's cancel culture, but that's a whole different thing. I'm talking about right now the situation that he's in.
Mhm.
Feel like yes, other people have put themselves in worse situations or have done, but he, like I said, he's part of the culture.
I
he's
get
part of the
what you're
community.
saying, but
so yes,
the-
he should be tried in that community.
Yes, and he should. But
which he is.
and he is. But look, this is what I'm saying. You just look at this: American citizen being wrongfully
Accused.
held,
Held and
accused, and
accused.
tried in a different country. If you were to have that happening to anybody who had a good light and good standing in the U.S., it wasn't the
So
the butt of the
question,
joke.
because
a lot of times.
I even refuse to watch his videos. Like, the only way I'll watch a video of his is if it's like a clip of somebody else. But is he a dual citizen?
Yes, he's actually
So
actually
he's
dual.
being-
Well, he's a dual citizen, not only just United States but also England.
Yeah,
So is it United States, England, or
United States, England.
or United States, Romania, and England?
No, he's not a citizen of Romania.
No, he's not a citizen of
Okay.
Romania. He's a citizen
He's
of the
Romanian.
United
So-
States
so
and
why,
England.
So why
Is-
isn't England taking over?
It's the same situation.
It's the same.
Yeah.
But
So the lawyer that they hired from obviously they hired the lawyer from United States. This girl is a pretty heavy hitter, and she's not cheap. She's a pretty expensive lawyer. So they hired her specifically for her credentials,
She'll
right?
Get out. Nothing will happen.
So the problem is she's running into roadblocks there, which again I understand it's a different country, different rules. It is what it is. But the problem here is forget all that. The evidence comes out that these girls were plotting against him. Now they made this whole thing how he was a sex trafficker, this and that, this and that. However, now we're getting the last of it is that he's actually not, and they've been wrongfully accused for it. However, you don't see media showing these text messages. But you've heard this, that he's a sex trafficker. But if media only shows one side versus showing the other
I
side,
mean, I've seen that. I've seen the WhatsApp messages.
you've seen the WhatsApp messages just because maybe, whatever reason, but overwhelming majority that, let's say, doesn't necessarily follow him or only knows him as the misogynist, they only know about the sex
Yeah,
trafficking versus
only so much info comes
I
through all
was
of our
reading-
feeds.
I was
Yes.
You know what I mean? We can only consume so much.
But that's also like it has to do with the fact that what I follow versus what he follows, where it comes up.
And not only
Obviously,
that,
I'm not
no,
looking
not
at
only,
things.
not only that,
What
it's
news
about
media
how
outlets
the
are
so-
talking about.
it's about how social media in general likes to
Be biased.
put a big red bow on your fat shit, but puts a tarp over the good things you've done.
Oh,
Yeah,
That's
and
everywhere.
it's kind of
So
Everywhere.
it
you know,
it ties
You
in
can
with.
do 100 million good things. If you do bad thing, they're gonna outline the bad thing.
Hey, go ahead with that video of a Scarlett Johansson. We can't play sound, can we? We're having issues with
No.
the sound.
we don't
So,
necessarily
let
have
me-
to play
let me-
sound for that video though.
All right, let's go ahead and just
Let
just
me
throw
say
the.
something real quick. So I was reading on that video that you mentioned when they were talking to the lawyer. Some guy commented underneath, and he was in a similar situation in Romania, and pretty much same thing, allegations and things like that. And he is saying they can only extend up to 100 days, I think. If I remember
180
correct.
days, I think 6 months.
No. It was like 30, 30, 30, and then 10. I'm not sure.
Jay, who lives in a bubble, talks about bubbles. I'm weak. Well, Alex, I think you might live in a bubble. I accept that world is unfair. I think you're still trying to make the world
You
fair.
were saying, Arthur?
Yeah, basically, they were saying that after he got released, after 100 days, they couldn't find. Then they put him on something that he had to, after 10 years, he would have been, like, called back to court. I don't know the whole message. You got to read it. And basically, still waiting to hear from it or something. Like, that this case still exists on him. And he was in Romania. And it's still lingering in his records or whatever.
And it's
because-
bullshit.
but yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think the way he put himself out there, I think it's kind of hurting him now because that's why U.S. is like, he's talking shit, the media, whatever. I'm not gonna go and rescue him, whatever.
Yeah.
So,
So basically, just post a Facebook link
really
in there
want
for
to
the
spend 2
Scarlett
hours?
Johansson clip.
No, I mean we're at 2 hours.
Okay.
No,
Yeah,
I was
we'll talk about that next time because that's actually a pretty deep conversation we're gonna probably go into, and we're already at 2 hours, so
All right.
we can save that one
anyway,
for next time.
last thoughts. Maybe start with you.
I'm gonna just defend Jay for once, which I don't do very often in these situations. But the last person who I think have lived in bubbles are these two right here.
Yep.
They've seen, I think, all aspects of life, from what is essentially communism
to Alex doesn't know
to
what he's
living in the
talking
US.
about.
Yeah, Alex has no idea what he's talking about. It is what it is. Eddie, last thoughts. Arthur?
No last thought. Free Andrew Tate.
Yeah, free Andrew
Free
Tate.
I saw
No.
I saw a video clip of this girl that was against Andrew Tate completely, and another guy that's friends with Andrew. They're sitting across, and she goes, "Hey, He goes, "Can you do me a quick mic check for me?" She's like, "Yeah, sure." He goes, "Go ahead, say these couple of words for me. Free," and then she goes, "Free, top, G." And then she goes, G. Ah, you son of a bitch. But anyway, so my last thoughts would be, I think the world is an unfair place. And I think playing a victim card is probably the stupidest thing you can do. So if you see something that's unfair for you, look at it. Make sure you can also look at what you can do about it, get better at it, and rub it in everyone's face and show it to them that you can do it and you can be better at it. Because I promise you, if you go through that adversity and you prove it to someone,
even under unfair conditions,
even in unfair, especially in unfair conditions, because then no one can take that away from you, and people are gonna look at you differently because they're gonna come in and say, you know what, we threw the book at this person and they still prevailed and they still came out to be what they are. So at the end of the day, yeah, Alex, Alex, we're good to go. So talking about the internet bubbles, love your picture, by the way. It's an awesome profile picture. So, well, the mirror's clean. Most guys don't take selfies with clean mirrors. So, so bottom line is stop having a victim mentality. Do something about it. You see something unfair, do your best, prevail at it, become the best you can possibly be, and don't ever let anyone tell you otherwise, right? So
hey, Alex,
that's the last thought.
Just one thought to Alex. I lived in USSR regime, so if you know what that is, you have no comment on or saying about that. So, yeah. That's
Anyway,
my last thought.
We can continue this on our next episode on Thursday, guys. On your way out, if you hit the like button, please. If you haven't done so, we'll much appreciate it. Anyway, guys, love you. Peace.
Thank you guys
See you
for
on
coming. Much
Thursday.
love.
Thanks for having
Hey,
me,
shout
guys.
out to Felicia and Eric for joining the video. Thanks. Appreciate it.